With the 14 members, the membership of the Kenya Kwanza Coalition stands at 179 members, while the membership of the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition Party stands at 157 members. This, by implication, indicates that the Kenya Kwanza Coalition is the majority party, and the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition Party is the minority party in this House.
The political parties planning to run by-election set for December 8th have until next week on Thursday to submit the names of their candidates. IEBC Chair Fulichi Bukati says the by-elections will take place in Bungoma, Ololmasani, Kiomethana, Utawala, Mumias North and South Game wards in our county. The candidates will also be allowed time to campaign until December 6th. Now, the selection interviews to fill the advertised positions of principal secretaries in the public service will be held from Wednesday next week for 10 days. The Public Service Commission in a statement revealed that it had shortlisted 477 applicants out of 9,154 that applied for the jobs, whose application deadline had been extended from 20th to 27th of September 2022. The interviews will kick off on October 12th and will go on until October 22nd. The Commission is inviting you to send your views on the suitability of the shortlisted candidates to head the State Department in the public service via email to psinterviews@2022publicservice.go.ke. This is part of public participation in the recruitment process. In the published list, former Narok Governor Samuel Ole Tunai and former Kiminini Member of Parliament Chris Omala are among the 477 people listed by the Public Service Commission in 49 positions of ministry secretaries. In the same list, many of those listed are secretaries of various ministries who sent applications, including the Secretary of Basic Education Bailey Kipsang, his colleague of Communication and Technology Esther Koimet, and of Technology and Innovation Jerome Ochieng. Others are Fred Sigaro, Planning Secretary, Ministry of Housing Charles Hinga, Secretary of the Ministry of Livestock Andrew Timor, Saitoti Torome of Planning in the Ministry of Finance, Kipchumba Kimeli of Transport, Kevin Desai of EAC, and Zainab Hussein of Tourism. Others in the education sector are the Secretary General of Ministry of Education Sarah Ruto, Margaret Mokima, Julius John and Charles Ringera are also on the list. Lawyer Koki Muli, Edward Kisiangani and former NTSA boss Francis Major are among those on the list. Now, Sirisia MP John Waluke has been ordered back to jail to complete his 67-year jail term after losing an appeal at the High Court. Waluke had been jailed by the Magistrates Court, which found him guilty in a 297 million shillings maize scandal, but he filed an appeal at the High Court, arguing that the court had erred in the judgment. Waluke was sentenced on June 2020 alongside Grace Wakhungu over 300 million shillings fraud case in a maize scandal at the National Cereals and Produce Board. This is News. I'm Dennis Asseto. Good morning.
.9 SpiceFM, Mombasa.
When you're impeached, you're impeached. When you're sentenced, you're sentenced.
Madam Chief Justice,
until the sentence is set aside.
Ukibeba vitu kwa roho utakufa. If you carry things in your heart, you will die.
You've had the luxury of living for 50 years and you cannot still explain yourself. Surely. Oh my God.
The reason for which you went to school and then gathered experience, that reason must be paid for.
All right.
Oh, okay.
This level.
Shape up or ship out.
Levels don't change.
No.
Since I'm not shipping up.
You're my business partner here.
Shipping out.
Are we talking about the sheep in the bathtub? Or
the ship man.
Emmanuel Talabu used to tell us a story of they were in school and they'd been told to write composition about a ship. His classmate raised a hand. Teacher, are you talking about the sheep or a sheep goat?
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
it's finally Friday, and there is already traffic building up on Jogo Road, getting out towards Landis and into the city this morning. Coming off a thicker superhighway, doesn't look too bad. It's going to clog up right around that drive-in junction coming off of Outer Ring. Kiambu looks good right now, Kiambu Road that is. And just keep an eye on that because we know it's likely to clog up later. Well, probably some outbound traffic on the thicker superhighway going into the weekend. Coming off James Gashiru now and many parts of Westlands. It looks all right. Free flowing traffic, not starting to look like a clogged traffic situation just yet. Let us know what's going on where you are this morning. Started Friday. Hopefully we can keep it right. And let's talk on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Keep things moving this morning.
SpiceFM Nyeri. This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
There's a lone wolf in the studio this morning. Good morning to you and welcome to the tail end of the week. It's Friday and looking into, indeed it is going to be a long weekend because Huduma Day is on Monday. And so that means as you start your weekend today, you're going through the week and then through the weekend and then into the start of the week. How are you doing? Hope all is well with you. And then you may ask, you're alone? No. I saw them. I don't know now where they disappeared to, but chances are that they'll be making their way to me in a few minutes. Hoping that you started off and getting into the week without too much of an issue. All right, so that's how the day has started. A lot to be discussed this morning. A lot of conversations making their way into the public eye. And we'll be having those conversations this morning. From those whose sentences or rulings have been upheld to those who will then find their way outside or away from the long arm of the law, to those who are fighting on the floor of the National Assembly. That's what Friday is turning out to look like. CT, good morning.
Good morning.
Mm-hmm. How are you?
Fine, good morning.
Mm-hmm. One more good morning.
Yes.
You had a good day? Mm-hmm. You have a song in your heart?
No, a beat.
A beat? Okay. Let it out.
That's what I'm doing.
Okay. Karibu sana, karibu sana. Eric, good morning.
And why do you like talking to yourself for so long?
At all. You people are the ones who left me now. How will I do? Who do you want me to talk to?
Who left who?
You people left me here.
You are the one who left us.
Oh, so would have been inside here if
Yes.
you were still outside?
Yes, they're like that.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you do that to yourself?
In fact, thank you very much. I won't do it again. On that note,
Qatar, freedom is here.
So they say. Well, not really. Going by the headlines, it really is not.
Oh, it's freedom for the hustler.
Okay.
Kenya's biggest conversation wishes you a very good morning. Nyinyi mko salama, sinyo? CT with the beat. Ndu with the what?
I am the one with the beat.
Ndu
and the beat goes on.
And the beat goes on.
And the beat definitely goes on.
We nakuambia. Hello everybody, Abaria Sibuhi. Welcome to the show. We are happy it's Friday. It's the 7th of October. So is it a long weekend?
It is. Huduma Day.
Has Huduma Day been gazetted?
Well, not yet, but hasn't Huduma Day always been a holiday?
You do know that in this country, the mere mention of a holiday means people prepare for it.
People have already started preparing for it.
The
So
gazettement is a story that we will talk
it'll
about.
just come
We will carry
as a
it,
by
but,
the way.
see, it has been mentioned. So what else could it possibly be
Why?
if not a holiday?
If not a holiday, as long as it's been mentioned, then we should just know.
Yes.
In holiday.
It falls in the category of the things you say, be knowing.
Holiday. Celebrate.
If
It'll
you...
be so right.
Yes.
Okay, let me tell you what we'll be discussing today. At 7 o'clock, the Honorable Architect Sylvia Kasanga will be with us. She's a former senator and a mental health champion. She is already reaching out to the counties and telling them. You remember there was the Mental Health Act that was passed by the 12th Parliament. Now she's asking the counties to please adopt this act and also start running programs and allocating budgets for mental health at county level. And so she's going to come and tell us why counties must plan and budget for mental health. We're in that cycle where we are now doing the county integrated development plans. They are 5-year plans. We're in the cycle of developing the next CIDPs, the third CIDPs. So Sylvia wants to go to the counties and tell them, as we do CIDPs, also have plans for mental health. And then that will follow with the annual development plans at the county level, which will then be financed through budgets allocation. 7 a.m., that is what we'll be discussing. At 8 o'clock, we have Active Citizen. What's her name? Cherotich Say. Cherotich wants to move out of tweeting, and go to Parliament.
And tweet in Parliament.
And tweet in Parliament. All those things that she was saying, she wants to go and do that in the Senate. Why the Active Citizen is deciding to join elective politics, and she is an aspirant for the Elgeyo Marakwet Senate seat, which is soon expected to be declared vacant. It hasn't been, but we know the senator for Elgeyo Marakwet has been nominated by the president to be the cabinet secretary for transport and infrastructure, the Honorable Kipchumba Murkomen. So there are many people. One of them is Tim Kipchumba, whom we hosted last week. We are also hosting today Cherotich Say. On Monday, we'll be hosting another one who's aspiring to be the Elgeyo Marakwet senator. Here what we'll have them. It's Friday. It's Health Friday. So the Health Friday conversation today is about smokers and quitting and those things that they've been doing now called vape. So is vaping an alternative to smoking?
It would seem as though vaping has less in terms of nicotine, and that the attachment aspect, or what's the word I'm looking for? The addiction aspect then is not as high. However, it's a banned substance in very many countries. We've seen the famous WNBA star Bryna, who is currently in Russian custody for carrying two vape elements in her luggage, and she's been sentenced to 10 years in prison in a Russian prison.
Wow.
And so you want to ask yourself the question, okay, is it a drug? Is it like a nicotine patch that you would put on your arm to stop yourself from smoking?
Yeah.
But look, on some other side of it,
some harmful
does
substances?
it contain harmful substances?
Why is it that we don't want our children to vape?
Yes.
Because there's also a growing concern, even in the Ministry of Education, that there's an increase in vaping in schools.
It's thought to be safe. Is it really?
Is it really? So we'll have Dr. Michael Kariuki, who's a public health and a child health advocate, coming here to tell us alternative products such as vaping, the answer to help smokers quit smoking. That's a Health Friday conversation this morning. Keep it here for that.
Okay, so let's look at the numbers in Kenya, where 11 new cases of COVID, 9 of them in Nairobi, 2 in Nakuru, have come from a sample size of 2,685. Gives Kenya a positivity rate of 0.4%. Still good numbers, well below the 5% where you want to be. And again, another day of 0 recorded deaths. So yes, that's where it is. This is all against the global number of 625,547,425. Just over 10% of those numbers have resulted in death. Remember Dr. Li Wenliang? He is a Chinese doctor, and he also is considered a national hero. He faced censorship after sounding an early alarm on COVID-19. Remember him? Unfortunately, he is dead. He had debilitating fever. He was no ordinary patient. Before COVID had a name, he feared that this was no ordinary ailment. He's widely regarded as China's historic or heroic truth teller. He had been punished by the authorities for trying to warn others about the virus, and in a terrible turn, had become very sick. He became China's most famous fatality of the emerging pandemic. He was 34. It set off an outpouring of grief and anger on a large scale rarely seen in China. More than 2 years later, he remains that figure, and his profile is on the Chinese social
So what's the new
media.
story?
So
It's 2 years since he died?
it's 2 years since he died. They're just doing this story about how he warned of COVID-19 and how he spent his final days. What the Washington Post is talking about, what the New York Times is talking about in this story is that while the world is looking towards warnings, that it should have been a good idea to listen to him at the time when he was saying, guys, this is no ordinary ailment. It is going to be bad. Let's put up these medical surveillance, and let's do it now. So in as much as he's regarded as a national hero, the time again where there's a warning for any pandemic that would come across, when somebody would open their mouth to say that this is something that we ought to pay attention to, perhaps the world ought to pay attention to it.
Okay. 18 after 6, we are live streaming the show. Say hello to us on our social media handles, including on YouTube, where we are also live streaming. And we will say hello to you shortly after we take a look at the weather forecast. Have you texted the word Shamba to 40299? Have you? If you haven't, then you're missing out on an opportunity to win an acre of land free in Nanyuki, because AMG Realtors is celebrating 10 years. They're giving away 10 acres to how many winners? 6 winners. 5 are winning an acre each, and 1 is winning 5 acres in the grand draw. All you need to do is text the word Shamba to 40299. Get details of where they're selling land, invest in land, and you stand a chance to win.
$16 degrees, mostly cloudy conditions in Nairobi. We'll see highs of 25 through Friday, and we'll see highs of 24 in a mostly clear Nakuru at 12. It's 15 and raining in Nyeri, highs of 23 and lows of 14, 13 degrees and clear conditions in Eldoret, highs of 23. It's 23 and raining as well in Mombasa, highs of 29 and lows of 23, while we'll see highs of 29 in Malindi. It's raining lightly at 24. 19 and clear in Kisumu, highs of 28, and 28 will also be the high in a clear Kakamega at 17. It's 19 and clear in Kampala. We'll go to highs of 27 and lows of 18. 21 degrees and cloudy conditions in Dar es Salaam. Highs of 30 and lows of 21. It's 18 and cloudy in Johannesburg. Highs of 30 and lows of 15. While light rain continues in Lagos throughout Thursday and into Friday. Highs of 29 and lows of 24. It's raining in Kinshasa at 25. Highs of 32. And lows of 23. Going into Friday afternoon, Beijing is sunny at 14, highs of 20 and lows of 9. Cloudy conditions at 7 in Paris, highs of 19 and lows of 7. Mostly cloudy in London at 13, highs of 19 and lows of 9. And we're looking at cloudy conditions Thursday night in New York. Coming into Friday, we'll see highs of 22 and lows of 14.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
Yes,
94.4
Spice FM. You on YouTube, listening and watching from Bukavu. You know what Bukavu is? The DRC.
Kure katikati.
Kure. Duka. Okay, I want to say that it's Duka Joseph. In my language, it would be Nduka.
Meaning?
Nduka is the life that is. So it's probably Nduka Chuku or Ndukachi.
Life that is.
Yeah, the life that resembles that of God. Ndu, because life. Ndu
So
is
Ndu
life.
is life.
Ndu means life. Yes. Nduka Chuku. So the life that resembles that of God. Ndukachi. You get it? If you don't get it,
right? Kachi.
So I am assuming that this is
Nduka.
This one is Nduka. Quite a number of people online as well. Good morning, good people. Mzee CT, how can I have a sit down with you?
Ndu, you are the one who organizes such things.
I'm the one who organizes sit downs.
Well, yes.
Right.
So talk to Ndu.
Chris Michaels, Sir Eric Queen Ndu,
Mwambaji.
Mwamuka.
Mwamukata.
Yeah, yo.
Neke kamba.
Yeah, sawa.
Twamuka nesa mbulu.
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 Yes.
Meaning?
Mbulu. Ay, my brother, you don't know what mbulu means?
I know what an hang is.
Ay, sawa.
So Chris wants to have a sit down with you. Let's see how we can make that happen. Helen Jogona says good morning. Pamoja sana sana. Ndani kabisa. And she's in Githima, Munyo. Simon the Odhiambo is tuning from Magarini. Tuning from Meru. That's
you know where Magarini is?
I don't know.
Kilifi.
Pale.
Kilifi.
County. Kilifi County. Okay. Ombonya. Onyango Derek is tuning from Wagoro.
Our friend from Magarini hasn't called in a while.
No, he hasn't.
Next week tunafungulia simu.
Yes, we do so.
We need to speak to people.
Unaendelea?
Endelea.
Endelea. I will also tell you there's somebody who watches this show every morning. Nitakwambia jina yake sasa hivi.
Safi.
Sawa. Kuna mwingine anaitwa Wagoro. Okay, no, anaitwa Ombonya ako Wagoro.
Okay.
Mombasa is where Robert Mbogo is, and Nakuru is also Peter's tuned in from the Eldoret is listening this morning. Charity Minor, hey, it's been a minute, Charity. How are you? Tuning from Nakuru. Fred Wanjo, he says, good morning. I thank God, or maybe God. Today is Friday, and my favorite show is on. Good morning, CT, Ndu CT, and the man Eric himself. Yes. Tuned in from the east side.
I am myself.
Personally.
Yourself personally.
Yes.
Hey, okay. This Kiswahili, I'm not. Today is just giving me problems.
Give it a shot.
DJ says, all the way from Baringo, tuned in. Good day, Manu. Sawa. We see you. Good morning. Dactario Chok is tuned in. Chris is tuned in as usual. Samuel Wanyoike. Blessed Friday, ladies and gentlemen. Already in the room, tuned in from Nyakach. We see you, Cleovas. Geshuro tuned in and loving the show. And all the way from Ruwine, that's where Newton is. Peter's online. Abel Lanchevin tuned in as well as Alex Karibuni Sana.
There's a gentleman by the name of Ali Abke.
Ali Abke.
Ali Abke is a gentleman who manages properties. It's called the Jara Properties from Mombasa. Watches this show every single morning. Yes, we're giving a shout out to you, Ali. Thank you for watching the show.
Ali Abke.
Ali, tunakuona.
Habari za asubuhi.
Yes.
Ana manage property pale Mombasa.
Mombasa na hata
pale Mombasa.
kwingine.
Yes. Anauza pia. Ama kazi yake kumanage ile, kumanage.
I'm not nile kumanage.
Manage ile.
Yes.
Sawa bana.
Yes.
Ali, good morning bwana manager.
Did you say it's called Jara?
Ijara.
Ijara
is actually a place, but it's also a name.
Ijara is a place in Garissa County. So Ali Abke manages Ijara Properties.
Seems like a good week for properties, isn't it?
Kabisa.
Appears so.
Kabisa. Where is Dorcas of Malindi?
Ndio swali kubwa bwana.
Kuna watu hata ale amepotea kutoka Mombasa.
Aliwa Mombasa Haya bwana.
Mohammed at least.
Mohammed Mwakijembe.
Yeah.
Mwakijembe wako sawa.
At least he appeared.
Very good.
Yes.
Tutafungua simu next week. But also just get in touch with us on social media. Say hello. Say hello people. City. Are we still in Libya?
Finally, the final proverb from Libya. Yes. Simple, straightforward, easy to understand. The night has ears and the day has eyes.
The night has ears and the day has eyes.
Yes.
It's a nice one. There will be very many varied interpretations of this one.
Kabisa.
Ngoja tutasikia tu. Okay. Buy a copy of the Standard newspaper from wherever you are across the country and you get access to some goodies if you scan the QR code, which is on one of the pages of the paper. Scan the QR code, it gives you access to the Standard online platform, but also you stand a chance to win some branded merchandise from the Standard. You also stand a chance to win some shopping vouchers from the Standard. If you browse from any part of this country, if you have an Airtel line, you will be cruising easily because Airtel 4G covers the entirety of the Republic of Kenya, that which has been defined in the Constitution as the territorial boundary of the Republic. If you're in Kenya, you have 4G Airtel access. And remember, we are still giving away some 2,000 bob airtime. Go to our social media. You'll find Mlioto has posted a question. Answer that question, and he will pick a winner at the end of the show. So, what's on the front pages?
Okay, the front page of the Standard, chaos in Parliament as Ruto has his way with Tangula's decision that UDA is the majority party has moved, or rather has paved the way for the president's party to nominate members to key committees, among them the one that will vet cabinet secretaries. Protest from Azimio fell on deaf ears. That's on the front page of the Standard, just above a picture of President William Ruto alongside the sizzling hot Addis Ababa Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed for the launch of the Safaricom Ethiopia. That's what's happening there.
Wadamwita Addis Ababa Prime Minister.
Sorry, I meant Ethiopian.
Oh.
That's what I meant.
Okay.
Bad day for graft suspects is what's on the front page of The Nation. Oluke told to pay 727 million shillings fine, while Wahungu is asked to pay 707 million shillings in one of the most dramatic corruption cases in the country's history. The courts uphold the conviction of Sirisia MP John Waluke and his business associate Grace Wahungu in a 297 million maize scandal that could see them spend the rest of their lives in jail. Remember that these were some of the issues that we're looking at before. And the question was, can you? No. Until they've exhausted all avenues of appeal. It seems as though all avenues of appeal, in this case at least, have been exhausted.
But he wasn't innocent. Remember, he had been declared guilty.
Yep.
Yes.
And we
he
asked...
had been sentenced even.
Yes, we asked the Chief Justice, and he said, when the court has pronounced you guilty, you are guilty.
Yes.
Until that is overturned by a higher court.
Yes, you are guilty. You remain guilty. But the subsequent question was then, why is this guy being allowed to vie?
Yes, exactly. And he won and went as far as to ask to head the PS, to be on the PSC.
Surely, you cannot blame a guy for trying, can you?
We are jokers in this country.
Jokers. I'm telling you, it's not.
Complete jokers. Complete jokers. Look, he is a convicted fraudster. Okay? That is the long hog of it. Convicted fraudster. What did he try and do? He has been found twice now to be guilty of attempting to defraud. Not attempting. Defrauding the National Cereals and Produce Board some 300 plus million shillings by producing forged invoices. First time, convicted by the Anti-Corruption Magistrates Court, sentenced to 30 years in jail, told to pay over 600 million shillings as a fine individually, his company to pay some 626 million shillings a fine, appealed. The punishment was suspended. The conviction was not overturned.
No, it wasn't.
However,
so you pay or you stay?
Well, yes. In terms of case law, this is good. But then, how will this, as a president, influence other matters that the ethics and anti-corruption have been dealing with.
Well, you talk about other matters, isn't it?
Yes.
So can we look at that story?
At other matters?
Yeah.
Okay.
Those are the other matters that we're looking at. Because the other cases, yesterday was an interesting day because it's like the courts were doing that lunch. Yesterday, they were saying...
This judge was busy. As in, she had prepared all of them justice men and told them, you guys, do this.
Just come tomorrow.
Thursday, 6th.
Come. Let's just deal with this thing.
I'll be ready.
I'll be ready for you. Because Amos Kimunya, High Court, reversed his acquittal on the 60 million shillings corruption case relating to land transactions. So you, Atawewe, Davy Koech has not been granted bail. Former Kemri director lost his bid to quash his conviction in the 19 million shilling graft case and faces 6 years in jail. He had made a request for bail while the determination of the case is being while the case is being determined, but that has been denied. So he will continue in remand at the industrial area remand prison, at least for now. Okay, let's look.
City.
It's tragic, though.
Why
this. I'm eyeing because, you know, when people hear of Kemri, I look at the reports that have been written. They say founding director. He is not. 2 directors preceded Davy Koech. But the reason why Davy Koech is known is because Kemri, as you see, it was built by him.
By him, yes.
How did he do it?
What he did.
So what were the others doing?
Well, they were there. They were Kemri directors because the institution had been set up. And one director came, then left, then the other one came and left.
And then Dr. Davy Koech
Davy Koech came. Now, Davy Koech opened up the space for research, for collaborations. It is during his tenure that JICA came on board, and other universities of Japan also got affiliations with other centers, like Center for Microbiology Research, the center I was affiliated with, had collaboration with the University of Nagasaki and others. Those universities trained very many Kemri researchers. They also built a center. They also built a conference center and labs, and the support is still ongoing. The collaboration with CDC got expanded. Partnerships increased. Now, for
under the tenure of Dr.
Yes,
Davy Koech.
the things that you see in Kemri and the things that you hear being spoken of, all these things happened under the tenure of Davy Koech.
Okay.
Now, if you ask me, the things that then followed, the issue of the money for the pension fund, the issues that he's accused of in the papers about some money, public offers, whether from CDC. If you ask me, this is my explanation. No one should be at the helm of any institution for 21 years.
Nobody should be
at the helm of any institution for 21 years. 10 years maximum.
Go.
In fact, make it even 7 or 5, but go. You know why? You get to a point where you forget you're employed, that you think you actually own the institution. It is easy for someone to actually lose their way.
You lose your way.
Yes. I was going, because the picture that is being painted is of a man who was corrupt, messed up the institution. And I'm saying, look, the good that this man did stands today. It didn't go away. It's something you can go.
Still there.
You will see it. But we are easily forgetting that good, and we are focusing on this tragic things that happened under his watch, and for which now he's actually paying a very, very steep price for.
How much are we talking about?
Okay, so what we're looking at here, according to this Davy Koech story, is that he is serving his sentence currently. He was hoping for bail while this is being looked at.
He's unwell, isn't he?
Yes,
he had a stroke.
Yeah, he had been charged with. He had been charged that in 2006 he fraudulently acquired 800,000 from Kemri.
100,000.
800,000.
800,000
from Kemri.
800,000 shillings.
Shillings. Okay.
Okay.
The second and third charges read that on December 12, 2006, he regularly acquired 6 million and another 12.5 million from the institution. He's also accused of using his office to corruptly confer on himself money held in the account of Vector Biological and Control Research. He was further accused of transferring 19.3 million from the institution's bank accounts to his personal accounts when he was the managing director. The funds had been allocated to the Centers for Disease Control in Kisumu. In his appeal, Professor Koech had told the court that his health had worsened after he was put in custody after sentencing in September last year. He's suffering in custody and seeks that the 4 million shillings he had deposited in the lower court as cash bail would admit him on the same as he's aged. The former Kemri boss wants the High Court to quash the judgment at the lower court, arguing that trial magistrate Victor Wakumile failed to consider that there were inconsistencies in the witness testimonies and evidence. He also argues that the sentence against him is harsh and should therefore be set aside. The trial magistrate noted that Professor Koech had returned with interest the institution's research money that he had acquired corruptly, and therefore no loss was suffered. The charges stemmed from the long-serving Kemri boss's decision to transfer research funds from the agency's account at Standard Chartered Bank, Kisumu, to an account with the same bank.
So his initial conviction and sentencing, he was fined, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
He was fined some amount.
Yes.
Was it about 3 million shillings or so? Remember, we was talking about it and saying, okay, so
yes.
this is not a hefty.
It was fined 19.6.
It was 19 million.
0.6 million.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Anyway, let's take a break. It's 23 to 7. Let's take a look at the traffic. We'll look at other headlines shortly. Good morning.
Okay, so we're looking at traffic in different parts of the city this morning. Looking on coming off a thicker superhighway, quite heavy, and that is already building up through to Allsops. We saw that early this morning at 6. Okay, so coming out of Westlands, not too bad either. It looks all right. We're going to see some traffic coming off of Jogo Road as well, and it's the light traffic. It's not gotten to the heavy status at this point. It doesn't look too bad coming off Outer Ring either, and Gong Road looks good for now. Naivasha Road flowing freely. A little bit of traffic here and there at your junctions going towards Gitanga Road, but you should be all right for now. Let's keep an eye on things. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. We want to keep things moving this morning.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings.
All right. There's a man called Odoro.
94.4 Spice FM.
One of the people whose names will appear when we talk about the second liberation, the youthful people who were in the trenches pushing for multi-party democracy, for amending of the constitution, and for creating proper institutions that run the country. Okay?
Yes.
Odoro Ngwen, in this last election, was also working in the secretariat for Raila Odinga's election bid. He has written a book, and his book is called Stronger Than Faith. At the launch of this book, Raila Odinga was the chief guest. Now, Odoro Ngwen, the Azimio Presidential Campaign Secretariat Executive Director, claims that a conspiracy between a European country and Kenya worked overtime to deny Raila Odinga a deserved win in the just concluded election. He claims Azimio's victory was not stolen by Kenya Kwanza, but was an international conspiracy involving at least one country in Europe and another country in North America. He claims a high-ranking diplomatic official to one of the countries was long in a campaign strategy group. Our election was not stolen by Kenya Kwanza. It was an international conspiracy involving Britain and the US. A former president of USA, who many Kenyans admired greatly, was in Smartmatic's board. They long knew what they wanted. They had vowed that there will never be another Magufuli in Africa. That's what he said during the launch of his book in Nairobi yesterday. You want me to repeat? Why are you squinting?
I'm
You don't get it.
I'm following you.
He's saying...
She's following with a squint.
So he's saying Britain, USA, very, 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 very much involved in this election of ours. In fact, there's an former American president who very many Kenyans admire. I wonder who. That person was in the board of Smart Party. They had worked long and hard to make sure that we do not have another Magufuli. And Raila was going to be a Magufuli.
It was going to be a Magufuli?
Yes.
Did they know this?
Okay.
Odorongwen was the campaign secretariat executive director.
So he would know.
He spoke at the launch of his book. Speaking at the same function, Raila said, "You have heard what Odorongwen has said. You see? The African right wing has always been in conspiracy with international monopoly capital since independence." Excuse me.
Bless you.
Kenyans must be prepared to further sacrifice to win this struggle. He says, Africa democratization crusade must never be allowed to abort. You saw the chairman of IEBC run to announce results and he gets hailed as a hero. They cannot allow that to happen anywhere else but Africa. But while vying not to give up the struggle, Raila said sometimes liberators are forced to make a compromise for strategic reasons. He said the two forces had always marked Kenya's politics from independence, adding that one was for the retention of status quo and the other for change and development. He claims assassinations and detentions witnessed since the 60s was the start of a new colonial state. So Kenya Kwanza is not the one. It's external forces. Umesikia?
It was from outside?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're always external forces. Yes. When you talk about debt relief, we are referring to external forces. When you talk about vaccine preparedness, we are talking about external forces. When you talk about HIV prevention, care and treatment, we have that conversation because the external forces supporting. So they are always external forces. So the point at which those external forces don't seem to align their agenda with yours, then the narrative is that they are of necessity negative. But then there's the other question: how do we know that this is true?
How do you know that? And when did you realize that these two countries that you're accusing and the others were actually working against your campaign and working in support of the other campaign?
You know,
if you remember, Raila went to Britain. He spoke at the Chatham House. Raila went to the States.
And they welcomed him.
Well, I mean, the U.S. welcomed Fidel Castro. So, at some point...
Even Ruto went to the States and was welcomed. But at what point, you see, if you think somebody is actually working against your campaign, you wouldn't go and meet them.
Not only that, why didn't you say it earlier?
Yeah.
As it was going on, or did you discover this after the election? Then you figure out, so this is what happened. So this other personality was also a director and mathematic. Now, their statements, the truth of it, I'm yet to be convinced of, because anyone can say anything. Now, Odorongwen is somebody I actually happen to know. And he's not somebody who will simply say things without corroborating or without having his evidence. But it would have been a wonderful thing if we could see the evidence. Then the discussion would be a little more wholesome.
Yep.
But as of now, those are just statements that have been made.
Yeah.
Yes.
He has launched a book. He should come and we talk about this book. We'll look for him one of these days.
Yes, we will.
In the coming weeks. Now that you and him are buddies.
We
are tasking you.
Yeah, I will look for it.
Very good.
And I'll ask him to come so that we can discuss this book of his, and he can then furnish us with the details and the evidence that he has.
Yes.
Yes.
Hiya. Did you get your guy today? Get another guy, City.
Yeah, you need to get a new guy.
No, that guy is okay.
Yeah, except when he's not there.
That guy is okay.
Salala.
City, you still come here the same time you used to come?
No, I come earlier.
You come earlier? Then tell him to
get an earlier guy.
Get an earlier guy.
I thought I had a plan B, but that plan B is iffy.
Bas.
Get C.
Get a new guy.
I'm going to figure out something. Do not worry.
Okay.
I'll figure it out.
It's important, Buana. It's important.
But I have the East African.
Tell us about the East African.
Right.
The one for last week.
Not really.
It's for this week. The week that ends
October
today.
1st to October 2nd.
But
The one that
it
ends today.
so it's still relevant.
It's still relevant.
My friend, this thing is completely relevant.
Okay.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. Hey, now.
And why did you tell us something else?
Do tell us something else.
City is looking for that, eh?
Yes, I
tell
had
us
it
about
here.
the 9,000 people who applied for 49 jobs.
Boss, it's not a small wala. 9,000 people applying for 49 top jobs in the ministries. A total of 477 applicants have been cleared to fight for the 49 positions of Principal Secretary as President William Ruto puts the final touches to his government. So there's that short list. We've seen it. The story is carried on page 20. Just a moment. La-di-da. Let me just borrow CT's song. When you're trying to open the page and then it refuses, can be an embarrassing something.
As you get it, let me do the first.
I found it.
You found it?
Why are you like this? Okay, so of those who have been shortlisted, there are quite some who've worked in previous governments. We have governors. Anyway, former members of parliament, serving state officers and online personalities are among 477 Kenyans cleared to fight for the 49 positions of Principal Secretary. Public Service Commission yesterday said 9,154 people had applied out of the list. Only 5.2% were shortlisted, while 8,707 were rejected. Notable names are former MPs Nixon Korir and Isaac Mwaura and current Principal Secretaries Susan Mochache, Kevit Desai, Julius Juan, Nancy Karigithu, Dr. Nicholas Murakuri, Esther Koimet, and Margaret Mwakima. The commission shortlisted the 477 out of 9,154 that applied for the positions, whose application deadline extended until the 27th of September. PSC Communications Director Brown Kutswa, whose name is also on the list, said the applicants will be interviewed from Wednesday next week. Selection interviews to fill the advertised positions of Principal Secretary in the public service will be held from October 12th to 22nd, following the conclusion of the shortlisting of candidates by the PSC. The list of the shortlisted applicants and the interview schedules will be posted on the website. So, those names are in the Standard today.
Notable names?
Notable names, Professor Edward Kisiangani and Stephen Mutoro, who comment on politics on online platforms. Kokimuli Grignon, Tabitha Mutemi, former TNA party official Winnie Goshu, lawyer Abraham Singoe, thank you, and communications expert Fatuma Hirsi Mohammed. We've also seen the former Deputy Governor of Nyeri County, Dr. Caroline Karogo, as well as
former Langata MP.
Nixon Korir.
He's
also there. And
former nominated Senator Isaac Mwaura is also there. Current sitting PSs is Susan Muchache, Julius Juan, Nancy Karigithu, Nicholas Muragori, Esther Koimet, what's the housing PS? Charles Hinga, Esther Koimet, Margaret Mwakima are all there. Yeah? Ni wengi. 477, and the positions are 49.
And it started off with 9,000, didn't it?
Started with 9,000 applicants for 49 vacancies.
So the short listing, well, I guess haven't they given us an indication of what it is they were looking for? Basic requirements in the CV you must, and also you must, and also it's required that you must. Yes.
And those who mastered sent the application.
Kabisa. Now, what I wanted to talk about is something we talk about all the time.
Okay.
And there's an article in the East African written by a gentleman by the name, I'm not sure it's a gentleman. Let me just read the name. You can tell me. Dialan Govenda. Dialan Govenda. That's the name of the person. Okay. Right. Now, he's saying Africa has everything it needs to become an economic powerhouse. Okay. And the reason behind it, he says, this in summary, the continent is home to about 30% of the world's mineral reserves and possesses 12 and 8% of the world's oil and natural gas, respectively. Also, the renewable and non-renewable resources comprise 30% to 50% of natural capital in African countries. Now, this is against a backdrop of something interesting, okay? He says that we find ourselves in this position because many industrialized nations will soon be facing, actually they are already facing, worker shortages due to declining birth rates when the world needs leadership and development of sustainable renewable resources. Now, the very thing that they're suffering from is what we consider to be a rich resource that we have. Okay?
Humans.
Oh, humans we have, and we keep adding. And then we have natural resources to boot. But on this hangs a tale. These natural resources, unfortunately, before even we became fully aware of the benefits that can accrue from them, these so-called industrialized nations, my friend, by the time they were divvying up the continent during the Berlin Conference of 18 God knows what, they had understood what was available. So, yes, we have them, but given the stranglehold that these industrialized nations want to keep having on these resources, yes, we may be thinking that we have the capacity, but that capacity is going to be tampered again by outsiders. They already are tampering. Africa doesn't have, for instance, the wherewithal to go around foraging for their own oil, their own capacity. They have to bring somebody from
elsewhere.
Yes. When we talk about mining, same story. If you look at the feeble and catastrophic attempts that we have been had with mining in this country, what have we seen? Those makeshift mines collapsing, people dying, being buried, etc., etc. So yes, what he's speaking of has been true for a long time. The question is, and I would ask this question, yes, we are poised, but do we have the sort of leaders who have the vision and the gumption to be able to actually utilize what we actually have to do this for their countries and also for the continent? That would be the question.
A tough one.
Oh, extremely.
Oh. Where is a tough one? Higher. Now, I have a story here that is from this area that we call the Restive North. An operation to flush out criminals in the North Rift has intensified, with state agencies vowing to restore calm in affected areas. However, as this is going on, guess what's happening? Locals are the ones who are bearing the brunt. Markets are closed. Learning has been disrupted. Movement into and out of Tiaty in Baringo County has been restricted, with traders being barred from entering the region under the operation. Speaking to the Standard on phone, the chairman of Parker Hills Primary Schools Committee, Julius Kisam, said only 30 of 200 pupils went to school yesterday. Out of a population of 200 pupils, only 30 went to school yesterday.
Why?
Security operation.
Meaning?
He says a number of families fled their homes. Parents fled when the operation started. The intensified operations instilled fear in the parents. Nelson Lochuria, a parent, said the ongoing operation, drought and hunger have rendered life unbearable. Lochuria, who's a member of the school committee, called on the government not to punish innocent residents. He says there's no business at one of the largest livestock markets in Tiaty since Monday. Traders claim they spent the day with their livestock in the holding pens and the Nginyang livestock market, but no buyer showed up. In January, the country's largest livestock market was closed following the killings of some security personnel. On January 17, the GSU commander, Tebakul Amadau, was gunned down by bandits at Kapedo on the border of Baringo and Turkana. 4 days later, Chief Inspector of Police Moses Lekairab and his driver, Police Constable Benson Kaburu, shot dead at Amayanville Bridge. So because of this ongoing operation, of course, livelihoods have been disrupted. Now, you'd hope that this then would result in proper peace being restored in this area. I am not holding my breath, unfortunately. I am not. Before you tell us about another one, let me tell you about this story, which is a quite bizarre one from Bomet. So there's an establishment in Bomet called, what is this establishment called? Well, it's a hotel, okay? So the proprietor of this hotel hires a gentleman called Dominic Ogachi Sosi in 2019, December, to do what? To clean the facility. As he was cleaning, a lady called Faith Cherotich walks into this hotel. But she walked in with muddy shoes. Remember, it's December. It's Bomet. It's raining. Walks into the hotel, muddy shoes, finds Dominic cleaning. Dominic tries to stop Miss Cherotich and tells her.
Miss Cherotich and her muddy shoes.
And her muddy shoes. We, ninaosha hapa. Pitia huko. Nini. There's a confrontation.
Oh dear.
Dominic slaps Cherotich a couple of times. Toka. Miss Cherotich has a knife in her handbag. Removes the knife, stabs Dominic. Dominic dies. Cherotich is taken to court. She has now been jailed for 7 years for killing the cleaner. Yep. The High Court in Bomet has sentenced to 7 years the woman who killed the cleaner after a scuffle for stepping into a hotel with muddy shoes.
Oh man! And all you
the
have
court
to
called for pre-sentence probation officer's report, and this was filed on 26th July 2022. And after that report is when Miss Faith Cherotich has been told
manslaughter.
Yeah.
Not premeditated.
No, when done.
She should have just taken off her shoes.
No, he shouldn't have slapped her.
No, I mean, in the very beginning, he was cleaning the floor and
Yes.
he asked her not to walk there.
No.
She should have just not walked into the place.
There's a lot of things that here that are leading to one thing
Yes,
to
One
another.
thing
yes.
led to another.
But also,
Where
look,
unapitia hapo, this-
look, if you're cleaning, somebody walks in. Surely, is there not a better way of dealing with this issue? Walk muddy shoe, cleaning because there's mud. You slap the person. Look,
What
two
happened
wrongs
af-
don't make a right.
They never
They
do.
don't.
What happened after, according to what you were reading there, when she walked in, did he ask her?
Yes.
He asked her to.
When she walked in, he asked her, "Hey, stop walking there with your muddy shoes. I've just cleaned that part."
Yeah.
Now, we don't know. Now, in the court documents, of course, and the evidence that was adduced must have shown. So what happened? What was her response? Did she say, "Oh, pole, and walk back"? Did she continue walking in? Did she retort? What is it that happened? Up to a point where they come close to
each
one
other,
another.
Yeah.
Guy slaps her. She gets into a bag, removes a knife, stabs him.
How did she have a knife in her bag? What was it for exactly?
Very many questions.
Very many questions, Bana.
Very many
You're
questions.
walking around with a knife in your bag.
Where?
You know, yeah, I'm stuck on that issue.
There should have been a better way of handling.
Yes.
There should be better reaction from both parties. I think.
Yes. But starting off with somebody's walking with, stepping on what you've cleaned, you don't slap them. You don't.
Don't continue walking if you've noticed that I'm cleaning. If I've told you, stop walking.
I have understood. You have jurisdiction. This person is a guest. This is what you're doing. You are upset because they seem to disregard what you're doing. You don't introduce violence into that situation because the violence provoked violence.
The violence provoked her to murder
Maybe
this guy.
it started with the verbal violence.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you know who I am?
No,
Pinching of nose kind of thing.
Yeah. That's what I'm getting at. Okay? That someone has to die is tragic. It's
very
needless.
sad.
Completely needless.
Unnecessary.
It's very sad. Anyway, keep it here for more conversations coming up in the next hour as we prepare to run on the 30th of October, the Standard Charter Nairobi Marathon. Good morning, 7 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is Newswire. Dennis Aseto. Kikuyu MP Kimani Ichung'wah is the majority leader of the National Assembly, while his deputy is Kilifi North MP Owen Baya. Speaker of the National Assembly Moses Wetangula announced the positions after ruling that Kenya Kwanza has the majority in the House.
The member for Kikuyu constituency, the Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah. The member for Kilifi North, the Honorable Owen Baya, is the deputy leader of the majority party. The member for South Mugirango, the Honorable Silvanos Osoro, is the majority party whip. The member for Marsabit County, the Honorable Naomi Jilo Wako, is the deputy majority whip. That with regard to the minority party, the member for Ugunja, the Honorable Pio Wandai, is the leader of the minority party. The member for Kadiani, the Honorable Robert Mbui, is the deputy leader of the minority party. The member for Suna East, the Honorable Junet Mohammed, is the minority party whip. The Honorable Sabina Chege is the deputy minority whip.
Wetangula further said that Kenya Kwanza has 179 MPs compared to Azimio, which has 159 MPs. The Speaker upheld that the 14 members of Parliament from MCCP, PAR, UDM and MDG are recognized as Kenya Kwanza Alliance members, having signed a post-election coalition agreement with the coalition.
I'm therefore persuaded that the 14 members and their parties are part of the Kenya Kwanza coalition. This, in my view, that with the 14 members, the membership of the Kenya Kwanza coalition stands at 179 members, while the membership of the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition party stands at 157 members. This, by implication, indicates that the Kenya Kwanza coalition is the majority party, and the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition party is the minority party in this House.
Political parties planning to run in the by-election set for December 8th have until next week on Thursday to submit the names of their candidates. IEBC Chair Wafula Chebukati said the by-elections will take place in Bungoma, Ololmasani, Kiomethana, Utawala, Mumias North and South Game wards in Narok County. The candidates will also be allowed time to campaign until December 6th. Now, selection interviews to fill the advertised positions of principal secretaries in the public service will be held from Wednesday next week for 10 days. The Public Service Commission in a statement revealed that it had shortlisted 477 applicants out of 9,154 that applied for the jobs, whose application deadline had been extended from 20th to 27th of September. The interviews will kick off on October 12th and will go on until October 22nd. The Commission is inviting you to send your views on the suitability of the shortlisted candidates to head state departments in the public service by email psinterviews@2022publicservice.go.ke. This is part of public participation in the recruitment process. In the published list, former Narok Governor Samuel Ole Tunai and former Kiminini Member of Parliament Chris Omalo are among the 477 people listed by the Public Service Commission in 49 positions of ministry secretaries. In the same list, many of those listed are the secretaries of various ministries who sent applications, including the Secretary of Basic Education, Bailey Kipsang, his colleague of Communication and Technology, Esther Koimet, and of Technology and Innovation, Jerome Ochieng. Others are Fred Sigoro, Planning, Secretary of Ministry of Housing, Charles Henga, Secretary Ministry Livestock, Andrew Timor, Saitoti Torome of Planning in the Ministry of Finance, Kipchumba Kimeli of Transport, Kevin Desai of EAC, and Zainab Hussein of Tourism. Others in the education sector are Secretary General of the Ministry of Education, Sarah Ruto, Margaret Mwakima, Julius John, and Charles Ringera, lawyer Koki Muli, Edward Kisiangani, and former NTSA boss Francis Major are among those on the list. Now, Sirisia MP John Waluhe has been ordered back to jail to complete his 67-year jail term after losing an appeal on the High Court. Waluhe has been jailed by the Magistrates Court, which found him guilty in a 297 million shillings maize scandal, but he filed an appeal at the High Court, arguing that the court had erred in the judgment. Waluhe was sentenced on June 2020 alongside Grace Wahungu over 300 million shillings in a maize scandal at the National Cereals and Produce Board. This is Newswire. Dennis Aseto, good morning.
Okay, a few minutes after 7 o'clock, we're seeing traffic building up in several parts on Gong Road, a lot busier than it was about an hour ago. And we're also seeing movement inbound on the Thika Superhighway, taking you through to that Pangani underpass, where there will continue to be traffic as you move along. It's heavy on Jogo Road, coming off Lunga Lunga as well, into the CBD. And we're looking at traffic on Juja Road today, heavy into the CBD, as well as coming off of Kiambu Road, which is now bumper to bumper already, on Limu Road doing the thing as well. Coming through to Uhuru Highway, all the way from the Nyeri Stadium roundabout through to Westlands, still continues. Let's talk on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Let us know what's going on where you are this morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
7. Good morning, and how are you doing? Welcome to the second hour of Kenya's biggest conversation. City.
Yes.
It's true.
About?
It's true.
It's true.
Yeah.
About what? What are we talking about?
Ile jacket ile, mavaa ile jacket ile. Ile jacket ile Friday.
Kuna vitu bana.
Kuna vitu, baba vitu. Right.
Iko.
The new notes, King Charles. The King Charles
You
notes.
guys are about to be inaugurated. See, they announced the date. Are you ready?
Anyway, welcome to the second hour. We are going to have a conversation about mental health and integrating the mental health conversations in the county integrated development plans, and of course then budgets as well. We have our guest in the studio, the Honorable Architect Sylvia Kasanga, former nominated senator, who was behind a push to have the law amended and upgraded, and she's a mental health champion. To welcome her, City has a proverb.
Yes, this is our final proverb from Libya.
Eh.
The night has ears and the day eyes.
The night has ears
and the day
eyes.
You could say has eyes, but yes, the day has eyes, the night ears.
Where? Sylvia.
I tell you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Does that make sense to you?
I guess in a way.
Okay.
The night has ears because there's no light. Of course, it's darkness. So you use the ears to sense what is happening. The day has, as I'm coming, I have to be careful, has eyes.
As eyes.
As eyes.
The night has ears.
Yes.
The day has eyes.
Eyes.
So I guess a sense of sensory as and when is required. You use your ears when it's required. You use your eyes. When there's a light, you use that to see. I guess there's something there.
You're never alone.
I don't know.
You are even if you think that you're alone,
yes,
you're not alone. That's my interpretation of it. You can never do anything. Oh, no, it's in the dark. Their ears.
There are those who actually would argue that the night has both eyes and ears. The nocturnal creatures that we refer to can see in the dark.
That's right, they do.
Well, anyway, welcome.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, I thank God.
Very good.
Yes.
Very good. You're looking well and healthy.
I am. I don't have the burden of parliament. So I am happy, but we have work to do. It doesn't stop us from having work to do.
Very good.
Yes.
And also now it also allows you time to run and prepare yourself for the Standard Charter Nairobi Marathon at the end of this month.
Absolutely. Yes.
Ndu is recruiting.
Yes.
Are
you?
All the women, let's come out and do this thing.
Yes.
Run on the 31st. If you can't do it on the 31st, on the 30th. If you can't do it on the 30th, we can do the virtual one from the 23rd to the 30th. Log in those times and get your name up on that leaderboard. So, let's do it. Feel like an athlete, but at the same time run for a good cause. Yes?
I agree. And physical health is important.
Kabisa. Kabisa.
Every day I get one.
Every day you get a
Every day I get
recruiter?
Yes, a good thing.
Yeah, we're helping you. We are working with you.
Thank you very much.
We shall make sure that by the end of this month you have at least 30 people whom you've recruited directly.
Thank you very much.
For every recruit, we want 5,000 shillings. Yeah?
You didn't hear what I said, it's for a good cause.
Yeah, that's a good cause.
But Eric has just mentioned a very good cause at a discount.
When you give us the 5,000 shillings, we will also put it into
Very good use.
It will be for a good cause.
It will be for a good cause.
Okay.
Sylvia, you're saying you're really, really busy. And there's now the conversation about the mental health conversation into the counties, having spearheaded the amendment of the mental health law in the Senate, and that was assented to by the president. Now it's about seeing the implementation of the new law. So what are you doing?
Now, first, let's celebrate that October is largely known as the Mental Health Month. So there's going to be a lot of activity around mental health. And I'm glad actually you called me here because a lot of the activity starts actually today, Saturday, and culminating on Monday, which is 10th of October, is a World Mental Health Day. But normally it will run the whole month. There will be lots of activities in the counties. A lot of people are engaging, a lot of CSOs and NGOs are engaging on mental health activities to raise awareness, as always. So this is a special month for us champions, mental health champions. Yeah, and I keep getting asked the question, has the bill been, has the Act of Parliament been, what's the word they use? Has it been published? Yes, the question is published. Because after assent, it is required to be published. And I just want to clarify that, if you allow me. And I want to tell Kenyans today that actually we have an Act of Parliament on mental health that is in force. And this is looking at Article 116 of our Constitution on coming into force of laws, that a bill passed by Parliament and assented to by the President shall be published in the Gazette as an Act of Parliament within 7 days after assent. But subject to Clause 3, the Act of Parliament comes into force on the 14th day after its publication in the Gazette. So I need to tell Kenyans that the bill is in force.
Wait, so was it published?
The Act is in force.
Was it published?
I actually haven't checked. And I had
because those two that you've read.
Yeah.
So it is gazetted within 7 days after assent.
Yes.
And then it becomes operational 14 days after gazettement.
Yes.
So gazettement is at a very important step here then. So if it's not gazetted...
No. Actually, I checked with Parliament yesterday that it was gazetted.
Okay.
Yes. And that question keeps coming up. So I think it just needs to be fished out from the Kenya Gazette. It is there. And we do have an Act of Parliament on mental health. And the Act, I don't know if we've had this conversation on the Act. And I always keep saying I don't hear enough conversation around it, especially from the people who matter. When they come on studio, when they go on TV, I don't hear the mention that we actually have an Act of Parliament. And it's a big deal. It's a big deal, not just in this country. It's a big deal in our region. Because we did interact with a lot of regional partners when we were creating this Act of Parliament. So it's a critical act where we are. Mental health, if we are going to read the definition of it, which I will want to, then we'll realize why, as a nation, if we're going to talk about seriously rebuilding our economy and having Kenyans engage to the level of their full productivity, then mental health must be prioritized.
What is mental health? Let's just start from there then.
Thank you.
Define it.
I'll define it from the Act of Parliament that we had, because we actually used the definition that is in the WHO.
This thing which looks like a title deed is what exactly?
This is what it is. This is an act.
Iko mpaka na seal.
This one.
Na ribbon.
I'm telling you. In fact, there's the one that is actually ascended to. It has the president's signature here.
So how do I get a
copy?
How do I get one like this?
This one you have to talk to me very nicely.
I'll talk to you.
No, you talk to me first.
Okay, I'll talk to CT.
The highs will have it.
So,
definition of
mental health, which we should all have in our minds and that we should all know. Oh gosh, let me look for it.
It's in definitions.
Here. Don't know why I can't.
That first
find
page.
It. This first page gives the purpose of the act.
And the second one? Where we have definitions.
Sylvia, take your time.
Thank you.
This looking for things is something we've been doing ourselves.
I tell you.
It's a big thing.
Eric looked, I looked. Du looked. Eventually you'll find it.
And it's not nice.
So as you look, let me talk about the Mental Health Act.
Yes.
Was amended through an amendment bill that was sponsored by Senator Sylvia Kasanga in the 12th Parliament.
Yes.
It was passed and assented into law on the 21st of June 2022. It should have been then gazetted 7 days thereafter, coming into force 14 days thereafter. And it talks about the very many things that the purpose of amending was to align to the Constitution, including listing the role of the national government and the county governments in promoting mental health. The Act is prescriptive on the role of counties, with the use of shall as a mandate on what the counties ought to do when it comes to implementation and programs on matters mental health. See, because you have that one that looks like a title deed, that's why you can't find the definition of mental health in it. You'll find it as we continue.
I'll find it as we continue,
Don't
and
worry.
I'll read it for you as we move forward.
So, what was the importance of having this Mental Health Act?
Well, after the new constitution was promulgated, a lot of the laws that had been in existence before had to be, of course, brought into the new dispensation. And this one was left out somehow. This was left out. When the Health Act was done, 2017, the Health Act recognizes that mental health requires to have its own legislation. And therefore, it should have been done at some point after the promulgation of the new constitution. So the Mental Health Act that was in existence was one of 1989 that had been slightly amended in 1999. So it was really old dated and not recognizing the fact that health is a devolved function. Mental health is a devolved function as well because it falls under the ambit of the Health Act. So there was work to do, bringing it first into the current dispensation, defining the roles of national government and the roles of the county government being the first most important thing about mental health. And, you know, as we understand mental health and the essence of mental health, a lot of the work goes to the county as the implementers of programs, fighting stigma, you know, making sure we have a battalion of mental health workers and practitioners that are helping, you know, Kenyans and our citizens. And this is because globally, mental health has shifted from being dealt with in institutions to being dealt with at the community level, at the home level. So you'll hear a lot of psychiatrists, you know, speak towards community-based psychiatry. And that is really best practice today. And then there's, of course, the issue of human rights, the Bill of Rights, the rights of people living with disabilities, and the UN, you know, the UN approach towards such rights. And with people living with mental illnesses, they're covered under such rights. So we needed an act of parliament that recognizes the rights of people living with mental illnesses. So it's very important. And this had never been there before. But what I celebrate the most and what I always say was my biggest contribution to this act was the role of the counties. Because by then I was clear what we need to do as county governments to help our citizens.
How long had the act been in place when mental health was being declared by former President Uhuru Kenyatta as a national emergency?
Actually, he didn't declare it.
It was never declared.
It was a recommendation by
the committee.
The task force.
Yes.
So how long had the act been in place by the time this declaration was or recommendation was being made?
The act actually was assented to in June this year, 21st June 2022. That's when the president put his signature on it. So there was no act of parliament at that time.
There was nothing at that time.
That was at the height of advocacy work to get the bill passed in parliament. And we had a battalion of stakeholders who had come on board to help with this push. And I remember, in fact, very well, when we started, the first time I published the bill was in 2018. And in 2019, we started a lot of engagements. And by then, of course, Senate was onto it. And Senate passed the bill the first time. It was towards the end of 2019 that the Mental Health Task Force was formed. They went round and they produced the wonderful report, which I like to always make reference to. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to interact with this report. It's a very important report, the mental health and well-being towards happiness and national prosperity. Actually, it captures the length and the breadth of mental health in this country. You get a good understanding of the status of mental health in this country. They didn't publish this report until probably April in 2020, at the height of COVID. By then we had the ad hoc COVID committee and we're demanding that we want this report because then it would give us a basis in which to check Kenyans during the lockdowns.
Sure.
As you can imagine how it was for Kenyans. So it was around that time.
Around that time.
Yes.
Now, I mean, I hear you saying that this work needs to be taken to the counties because we I mean, it's clear. We always talk about it in this room, where a day will not go by that we're looking in the paper and there's an issue, whether it is a mother who has taken the lives of her children and then gone on to take her own life, whether it is, two people in an amorous relationship and one has killed the other because of whatever and then has gone on to take their own life, whether it is the abuse of drugs and alcohol because of terrible economic situations. I mean, we're replete with examples every day, many times in a day. So it is clear that there is an issue.
Definitely.
It is clear that there's a problem.
Yeah.
And rising. I think we are seeing some of the highest numbers of young people consuming alcohol and drugs, not teetotaling, not for social fun and entertainment, but to the point of abuse. The numbers are rising on a daily basis.
Yes.
There's something wrong.
Yes.
Anybody can see that, even with the lights off and your eyes closed.
Absolutely.
Is there, though, whether it's at national level or county level, goodwill to deal with this, number one? Number two, the mechanisms that you obviously say need to be put in place at county level, at ward level, whether it is hiring, whether it is buddying up with the positions that already exist. The infrastructure that's needed to set this up would be monumental. But is there at least the recognition that this is top of the priority list that needs to be handled?
When it comes to goodwill, first I say this is why these conversations are important. Because how else do you create goodwill? How else do you push your leaders to understand what really we want? We have to advocate for it. We have to, champion. We have to push this agenda and keep talking about it. I always tell my stakeholders whenever we speak that the work has just started. Yes, we managed to get an Act of Parliament in place, but to get it implemented and operationalized, we really have to hold to task the people who are in charge of it. So we are looking for this goodwill. This is the goodwill we are looking for. And one thing that makes me very happy is that we have senators who voted for this act who are now governors. Actually, that is my opening place. That's my approach. Because I'm telling them, we did this together. We understand what needs to be done for Kenyans. So can we start with your counties in the first place? Let's get these CIDP to make sure they all have a budget line for mental health. And it can start. And by the way, there are some counties that are already having very active programs on mental health. The second thing, why we must get this goodwill, and I know it is coming, is because a lot of the leaders after this electioneering period will tell you their experience with Kenyans. Because it is during this electioneering period you interact, our leaders interact properly.
With the real Kenyans.
With Kenyans. And they will tell you what they have come across. We have a citizenry that is suffering mentally for all the reasons that you're saying and a lot more. Our environment has really, really traumatized and caused Kenyans a lot of mental health issues. And our leaders know it. And they saw it.
Sylvia.
Yeah.
Wouldn't we, in addition to what you're saying, which is absolutely true, consider the mental health of our leaders also? Because if you look at the problems that we have that eventually cascade down to the Mwananchi, they start somewhere. The way in which we are ruled, the way in which we are governed, the way in which our resources are utilized for everything and anything other than for our benefits. Because the contributory factors, if you look at it from a family perspective, whatever pressures parents have is passed on to the children.
Yes.
And the children, it's not what the parents do, it's what the children imbue, what they see.
Yes.
And then with social media,
yes,
all these pressure points are then passed on at a speed faster than even the speed of light. But basics that we can understand, if we're talking about, we segment these issues and say, okay, there are these social issues that have to do with governance. It's those in leadership whom we must look at, not even two, because looking to them can be a faulty exercise. Then there's the issue of the economic disadvantages that come with mismanagement and how it is that it contributes seriously to the lives of these people. Now, these are the problems that we deal with. Most of them are consequences. They are caused by some of these larger issues. So if the larger issues aren't really addressed properly, this vicious cycle is not going to come to an end.
Yes.
It will not come to an end. Now,
yes,
the thing that the leadership also doesn't seem to understand is that Kenyan leaders have a very good people whom they govern over. This moving on, Kenyans do it very well. But we need to have certain basic things in place for us to move along nicely. And this is the fundamental problem.
Exactly.
And that's why I say the mental health
starts with the leaders.
Of our leaders.
Yes, it has to be, because
agree.
it's them we depend on
I
to
agree.
ensure that certain things are put in place.
I agree totally. Because we have to start somewhere.
Yes.
This vicious cycle
Yes.
has to come to an end. We can't always sweep things under the rug and move on the way we are used to, because these things have not gone away. If they're not dealt with, they've not gone away.
Yes.
It must start with the leaders. And in fact, one of the first things that we've already discussed that we must do is this new round of leaders have to be sensitized on what is mental health and what is their role when it comes to the well-being, the mental well-being of Kenyans, and what they must do thereof. So actually, we've already had some of these conversations with some of the senators right now, that we organize some breakfast sessions with them, and then we do the same with the National Assembly leaders. And the same is going to happen with the CECs, because I know the COG is going to be inducting the CECs once they're all fully in place. That conversation must happen with the CECs. Hopefully that
Speakers
conversation...
are meeting in Mombasa from this weekend.
Yes.
You should be there too.
I am not invited there, but my target is with the CECs first.
Turn up there.
Actually,
the leadership of counties.
You know, these meetings that are in Mombasa, if you don't meet in Naivasha, Mombasa, you can't really arrive at some...
Yeah, this is the best place.
The best place or binding decisions. But
you see, just to echo what you were saying, CT, maybe, Sylvia, as you talk about, meeting these leaders, for instance, what they should be doing at the County Speakers Forum in Mombasa this weekend, where they are being inducted, is also bringing mental health experts and having sessions and booths.
Absolutely.
Where they actually... they need sessions.
Yeah, they do.
Not necessarily a one-off.
In addition to them being sensitized on the importance of their people being themselves first, waende walale chini kwa meza pale, unasikiaje leo, or whatever happens.
They get therapy or something like that.
They start.
They need to.
If those speakers don't, then what are the county assembly is going to do? If these members of the National Assembly, all of them, if they don't do this, the 349 in the National Assembly, all the senators in the Senate, the 67 of them, right?
When they're freshly minted, like now,
this is the time.
This is it. Because the rent-seeking behavior that is symptomatic of these houses, whether at the county level or the national level, will overtake every other interest.
Yeah.
And this particular parliament, we've already seen signs. They come in and they're already talking about
ECDF, SRC.
Well, you can see how much work we have to do as champions, because we have to keep pushing this conversation, and we will get friends in these places who can also help with the conversation and pushing it. And I am not doubtful, because I know a lot more are aware of the status of Kenyans' mental health, and they will want to do something about it, and they will.
I doubt.
We have leaders who understand. We have some.
Not many
not
of
all,
them are aware.
but there are some. And
in terms of being aware is, for example, having internalized that report on the task force by Dr. Frank Jenga and the team, and knowing that this is what experts went around the country and this is what they found and this is what they recommended to the government, and understanding. I'm sure if you went and just stood outside Parliament and asked them, Umayona report, did you know about the task force? Many of them will tell you, Ganio. They don't know.
Why I'm hopeful. You guys know, I'm an optimist to a great extent. I am hopeful because I know already it is happening. Kisumu County already has a directorate on mental health. They already have a policy in place. And the entire Nyanza region looks to Kisumu County for interventions. They already know, they've already mapped out the needs of their people. And you can imagine how varied they are, because Nyanza has, so many tribes, so many customs and things like that. And they've been able to map out, they've used stakeholders who've been working in some CSO that have been working in Kisumu over the years. They've used those people to help their directorate be able to set up a policy. And they've been having a budget line for mental health actually for a while.
Oh.
Same as Nairobi County. You'll be surprised. In fact, if I tell you, just this morning I was speaking to Stella Wariungi, who is the one who's the champion for mental health in Nairobi County. And they've already established mental health coordination mechanisms within the county in 10 sub-counties. And they already have focal persons in each of those sub-counties they have established 27 mental health clinics within the primary health care facilities in Nairobi. And that is what actually the Act of Parliament is calling for, an integration. So every health facility has practitioners there. So you can get a wholesome review whenever you go in. They have experts who are going round, also psychiatrists, who go round within the facilities. All right? Then they have child-friendly spaces within these places because the children also need to be looked into whenever they go to hospital. Then the Pumwani, this I like very much because Pumwani already has a maternal mental health care services that are already running. They have a psychiatrist and a psychologist and social workers who are already resident within Pumwani to support the mothers. So it is not a lot, but it is a step in the right direction. And with time, an increase of budget means then there's an increase towards the services.
Very good.
My own county, Makueni, you know very well, has been having very a robust mental health program for its citizens. Again, we are calling for now the structures to be put in place because, you know, the Act is very prescriptive, like you said, on matters mental health. Actually, it says very clearly the county government shall do 1, 2, 3, 4. If you want, we can read them if time allows. But it's very prescriptive on what the county must do.
Let's talk about it after the break. 28 to 8, this is the Situation Room on KTN Home, on SpiceFM, or online. As we take a break with the Honorable Sylvia Kasanga, who is mental health champion, who's talking about integrating mental health in the county integrated development plans. Let's remind you about Airtel. It's free to send money on Airtel Money from Airtel to Airtel. Free. Also, if you go to any place and you want to pay and you see a till number or a pay bill number, you can still pay from your Airtel Money.
Because till ni till.
Till ni?
Till.
Till ni till. We're giving away 2,000 shillings worth of airtime today. What is it that we are asking people to do on social media?
So on social media, we're asking you to tell us who are you sending money to this weekend via Airtel Kenya and why? Share for a chance to win 2,000 shillings in airtime this morning.
Amlioto, our social media man, will be picking a winner towards the end of the show, and we will announce who gets the 2,000 bob worth of airtime courtesy of Airtel.
Partly cloudy conditions in Nairobi at 15, highs of 25. We'll see highs of 24 in a sunny Nakuru at 14. 16 and light rain continues in Nyeri, highs of 23. And we'll see highs of 23 as well in Eldoret, where it's sunny at 14. 24 and sunny in Mombasa, highs of 29 and lows of 23. And we'll see highs of 29 as well in Malindi, where it's mostly cloudy at 25. 18 and sunny in Kisumu, highs of 28. And 28 will be the high in a sunny Kakamega, currently at 18. It's 19 and sunny in Kampala, highs of 27. And we'll see highs of 30 in Dar es Salaam at 22, where it's sunny for now. Cloudy conditions at 16 in Johannesburg, highs of 30 and lows of 15. And we're looking at rain showers continuing in Lagos at 25, highs of 29 and lows of 24. Light rain in Kinshasa at 25, highs of 32 and lows of 23.
Chilled Spice.
It continues in many parts of Nairobi. Looks at outbound traffic going out west. Leaving Westlands out towards Naivasha and Nakuru. Traffic is building up. It built so around 6 or so, but then should be fine. Going into the weekend, lots of outbound travel. Coming back into the city, Jogo Road still tight as you get to that roundabout at the City Stadium should be okay. Getting into Landis and then onto Kamkunji looks a bit busy. Langata Road not piling up as such till you get to the junction of Aerodrome, and then it slows down just a little bit. Folks making their way into the city centre, and then looking at King Ara Road out towards James Gashiru, really busy this morning, and then crossing over into Westlands. So traffic continues. Let's take a look in about half an hour. SpiceFM KE on Twitter, trying to keep things moving.
Spice up your life.
"24 minutes to 8, the conversation continues with Sylvia Kasanga, mental health champion, talking about taking the mental health conversation to the counties.
The reason why the Nairobi County is unique is because they have done something that has been advised, the ministry has policies on, but very many counties have not bothered to action. It's called creating what you call community units. Because with community units, you will get lay mental health personnel, you'll even get trained, but at a level where the needs that present themselves can be met. We don't have enough psychiatrists to go around, we don't have clinical psychologists, but you do have people who are trained in counseling, trauma management, at certificate diploma level, and many of them comprise the cadre of employees we call community health workers. Now, in the absence of these people working at the community level, you will not be able to deal with this. And they're useful because they live in that community, they know the community, they know the individuals. And so the buy-in and acceptability factor is easily sorted out. And so the success stories will be grand. Now, this county, Nairobi, have actually established it. So yes, they have. Now, if you look at counties that had for the longest time that registered high prevalence of HIV, one of the things that was associated with HIV was also mental health issues. More so dementia, people who had stage 4. Now, Kisumu is one of those counties, and they already had partners who worked in this field to provide care and treatment. So it's something that has been. Homa Bay had them, Migori, that region. Now, those who are careful enough to have engaged with the partners they had at the time and who created this, and then the counties themselves took over. Yes, we'll have the structure and they will know exactly what to do. So no stone will be left unturned. But those who didn't have a long way to go.
Yes. Absolutely. You've hit the nail on the head. Because what we want is exactly what you're saying. We want every county to have these community-based health workers. It must start there. People who know each other, to speak to each other about mental health, to raise the awareness, to give information. The things that cause the stigma, which is the biggest deterrent towards seeking help when it comes to mental health, is stigma. And how do you fight stigma? Other than using the community healthcare workers. And that is how the HIV was dealt with during its time. And I want to read that I found the definition.
Okay.
I found it. That mental health is a state of well-being in which the individual realizes his or her own abilities, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. When you see that definition by WHO in 2005, then you realize there's a lot of conversations we need to have, especially in, shall I call it, a volatile environment that we are in because of the economy, because of war. You know, we have parts of our country that is at war. We have drought that is really affecting us. You know, we have climate change as well that is affecting us. We have a volatile environment, and our citizens need to be supported at all times because somehow we have to learn to adapt to the ever-changing environment. We have to adapt to, like, the social media that is really affecting us, the things around us. We have to be able to cope with situations where I always complain. You find a lot of advertisements on alcohol, yet we know alcoholism, drug use and abuse is very high amongst our young people. So how do we cope with our environments, given they are the way they are, you know? That sort of support is required. And in a country where we have a big gap in provision of such services, such facilities, such practitioners, where can we start? You know, so the counties have a huge duty. And if I was to go through this list is very long. The role of the counties is very long. But it lends towards, besides just creating a budget line, is creating county-specific programs. Because we realize that every county is different. We have pastoralist counties. We have our, Nyanza region that, like you have rightfully said, have a history from HIV, which still probably affects them. The post-trauma still does from those days. We have counties that have dealt with issues of drought, dry areas, including my own Makueni and parts of, Kitui. We struggle with, such like things.
Yeah.
We have the coastal region that has its own challenges, drug use and substance abuse, and things like that. So each county must
Should
have
come up with their own program.
specific programs in which they can roll out and they can start. And again, another requirement is for each county to have a mental health council. And a mental health council does not require 9 people. Sometimes we also want to start too big. I keep saying no. You can have a council of 2 or 3 people who understand what needs to be done. The Makueni program was probably rolled out by one doctor, Professor Ndete, who rolled that out. That was, one person. You don't need 20 people to be able to roll out. These things can be started in a small way. And the important thing, and what we are calling out for, is that it must start. And for the counties that have already started, we need to look towards their success stories and borrow those for the counties that haven't started.
Professor David Ndete and his concern for mental health has had very far-reaching positive consequences. He actually has a mental health foundation.
Yes, he does.
That does such work. And, beyond just what we know as mental health, he has been very instrumental long before we found what we now take for granted, peace in Somali, the country, Somalia. Yes. This Professor David Ndete had been involved in many conferences that dealt with peacekeeping for the longest time, year in, year out. Now, one may ask, peacekeeping, mental health, birds of a feather.
Yep.
But the thing that worries me, Sylvia, is the youth. Mental health among the youth. No one stays young forever. These young people will grow up. They will be adults. Asian crocs like myself will go, and these younger people will come in. Now, you tell me, what do we expect when you can talk about a generation that has serious mental health issues going into adulthood? What do you think will become of us?
Oh, my goodness. In fact, just yesterday, it's good you mentioned that. Yesterday, I participated in a survey that is being done by some stakeholders who want to push for a policy that looks into the mental health of our adolescents. And they're saying, in as much as we have policies on mental health that is general, and we have laws that cover the rights of children, there's need in our country to look specifically towards the adolescent. So you're right, because I have come to learn that mental health issues start at adolescence, actually the age of 14, and sometimes even younger. And if they're not dealt with as the brains continue forming, because brains fully form at the early 20s, then these mental health issues become very adverse mental health illnesses. So you will have a population, to answer you, of very mentally unwell Kenyans. And these are our leaders, they're our parents of tomorrow. So actually, you're right. And I agreed with the people doing the survey that this is something that needs to be, to be pushed, that we must look at the mental health of our teenagers. It is critical and crucial that we do so. Because again, looking at our population and statistics, there are quite a sizable, of our population, the young people in that age bracket, below 20.
The discussion we have from time to time about education, its usefulness, the perception of education at higher levels, tertiary levels, and the youth's perception of it. And that has moved to the uselessness of education, because you have an education, but then what do you do with it? Now, Then there was a discussion of opportunities, meaning where you can take your education to what your education can help you with. Okay? Now, with all this, something arises which in my mind is not just explosive, no, it's not just incendiary, it is catastrophic. If you have an entire generation of people who are despondent because they have no hope, they don't see, when we talk about the drinking, these are consequences. This is not really the problem, it's a symptom. They don't see the need that other people have for doing all these wonderful things, planning for the future. What future? Doing this. So this issue of immediacy, this rise of young people involved in crime and doing crazy things, it's immediacy. It's a mental health problem because their minds are focused on, as I said again, immediacy. Why should I worry about tomorrow? Let me live for today. Today is good enough. Now, we have created it, and this is a problem that we have put on the shoulders, those of us who are older, of these young people. That's why I started off with the leadership. How do you deal with an entire generation of people whose starting off point is one of mistrust? They feel, we saw it reflected in our elections. We have more registered voters in this election than we had in the previous one, and yet less people voted. And many of them were youth. It's a clear statement. Why are they bothering with this process? They don't see the need.
What's
the point? They feel very let down.
What is the point?
What is the point? We've already been let down.
Yes, and the question they're asking is a valid one.
Yeah, we've been left to our own means. That is true.
The older people are fortunate in that they can look back into their lives and they can think of days when things were not as bad as this. But these young people, it's just bad followed by something worse, followed by something terrible. Now, how can that not affect your mind?
Very true. And the way I look at mental health, and when I do my mentorships, I want to approach mental health as a way of empowering the self, the person, by telling them, you need to be more aware of yourself. You need to understand yourself to the extent of what can I handle and what can I handle. Where if I go, I know I can see that if I go here, I will be upset, I will not work well, or I will not sleep well, so I don't go there. Where I have understood myself to the extent that I know if I should, hang out with, when I speak to the younger ones, when I hang out with this group of people, it affects me in this way. So I want to avoid that. In a way to bring them to a level of self-awareness around their environment and what they need to avoid for their own mental wellness. So that sort of personal awareness is a thing we need to raise amongst our youth so that they can understand that everyone's power is within themselves.
Sure.
As opposed to, I am only me because of that other person, that I cannot have a full life, even if my leader is doing A, B, C, D. Your life is not dependent entirely on that leader, that you can actually have control over your mental wellness regardless of your environment around you. And actually this report, this task force report, has a very good analysis of the social and other determinants of mental illness. It's there under chapter 5. And I like making reference to it because when you understand that the things around you can affect you mentally, then you need to realize to strengthen yourself such that you're not always affected and you know what to avoid if you can, what you can avoid or what you can do to adapt towards a certain environment that you're then having to live within. So it has to be something about personal self-awareness and raising that personal strength and understanding of your mind. I believe that is where it must start.
Sure. How would it look if we're looking around the country? How then would this look? All these plans that are being put in place are getting the act to then come to life. How would it look when we are now saying at the county level, at the ward level, facilities available for you to go in and have a chat with somebody? It doesn't matter what age you are at, that you can actually do this and have then a conversation with someone about the situation in which, how would this look? How would this play out around the country?
You see, I want to refer back again to Nairobi County because there are success stories here in Nairobi. And when I interacted with Stella and her team and saw the work that they are doing, how their data, they now have data. Because what happens once you put structures into place, then you can get data. You can see in this facility, we have put mental health practitioners, and this is the impact. We have had, more people first come to the facility. We have so many people seeing the mental health experts. There are those who keep coming back either because they want to continue having the conversation, they have the statistics around that, and that is a good thing. You know, you can see people are believing, so they come back because they're believing, or they send more people because they're believing. So you see the statistics of people going into those facilities growing significantly, and that's a good thing. You know, when we have data, then we can have a serious conversation. You know, part of the reasons that we keep, you know, not having enough faith that these things can work is because we've not tried them. We don't have the data to see the impact that some of these things have. The impact of having a mental health practitioner in a level 1. The day you put one there and the people come and they get this wholesome service where you've gone with bodily pains, they can't find anything wrong with you, and then they sit you down at the corner and, you know, have sort of a mentorship counseling session, and that person goes, a very fulfilled, you know, human being, you see the impact of it, because he will definitely encourage other people.
So how are they? What kind of data are they collecting? So first of all, they have the number of people who are seeing the person who's been assigned the role of mental health at a facility. Now, is this person coming to them out of referral from the main facility by the clinical officer, by the clinician, or is it somebody who is coming directly to see this person? Then, secondly, then what is the impact of that?
You see,
do we know then what happens thereafter?
That now you have to call Stella here to take you through the detail of it. It's an amazing work they have done, honestly. And you have to call her here so she can explain herself and show you the data for Nairobi County. Okay. That I'll not speak for her because I don't have it fully.
But in terms of
but you will see the impact of what, when you put structures in place, the impact it has on the citizenry. It is instant and you can see it. And actually what you want is more of that. More practitioners, more practitioners in more of the lower level. Because then the referral system also begins to work. Then you can now find, you know, from the level 2, they start moving up to level 3, level 4. The referral system actually begins to work, which is something we want to see happening.
Because what you're pushing for is establishment of such structures in the counties.
Yes.
And starting from the very beginning, when you're coming up with the CIDPs, make sure that you have programs that are specific to mental health.
Absolutely.
And then it shall go into budgets.
Yes.
Those kind of structures, what exactly should they look like? And just going back into what Ndu was asking earlier, what should they look like? Are we talking about a county referral system on mental health? Are we talking about recruiting of staff and having staff there?
Counseling centers.
Is it counseling centers? Is it call centers? What kind of structures are we looking at?
Okay, so the first kind of structure we are looking at is integration of mental health within the healthcare facility. We are not saying go and build mental health institutions, no. We are saying whatever health institutions you have, make sure there are practitioners there who can deal with mental health. That's the first instance. Second is to have programs. Programs include what community health workers will do. So you hire community health workers and you task them with certain programs. Your work is to go into schools. Your work is to go into the village. Your work is to go from door to door, informing people about what is mental health, giving them information, have baraza sittings, sit with women groups, sit with men. You know how our men suffer. We need a whole paradigm shift when it comes to handling the mental health of men, especially in our villages. So we need to have such programs, running. When it comes to schools, for instance, schools, we've been calling for psychosocial support in schools. So the county governments can support with that, especially in the early childhood education, which falls under the county governments. But even for secondary schools, you can create programs such that, you have community health workers who go around in schools, creating safe places for our adolescent children to be able to have these conversations happening. So these are the sort of, programs and structures that we are talking about. And one beauty, I keep saying, we have a lot of NGOs, community-based organizations who've been working in the country in their own way, in their own small ways, who've already been tackling mental health issues with our citizenry. And the county governments can call on some of these. It's good that you know who are your stakeholders within the county.
Co-opt them into their program.
Co-opt them. Let them give you the ideas and even use them. Use them in running some of these programs. And I've met quite a number of them. In fact, recently I met one organization that is working in Kakuma. I mean, you can imagine what they deal with up there in Kakuma. And they're ready to engage with county governments. They're saying, okay, we are here. We want to give these, ideas because we have been on the ground and we know what is needed in this part of the country. We know what is needed in this other part of the country. So that is a sort of programs and structures we are calling out for. And budget lines have to be introduced.
You know, as you say this, you're right. And you're talking about Kisumu. The same sort of input that Kisumu had, Homa Bay County, Migori County, Siaya County had. So it points to one thing, that Kisumu County has these structures maintained, because some of them were created. It tells you about the leadership. It tells you about the intent and the understanding. So the participation of the governors, you say, Professor Nyang' Nyong'o, you look there. If you look at the Nairobi County, you will look at the NMS. You look at Dr. Uma Oluga. You see, with all these policies, if there are no people pushing it, and those who actually have the mandate to, you will have them, but they won't work. But when you have somebody or people who are charged and know what to do, then you see it happening very quickly. So that is where it's at. And I'm saying this because when you talked about getting the governors on board, you were spot on.
Yeah.
But now, how to get these current governors on board so that they actually get it and understand it? Because the sooner you start this thing, the better.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I target probably only 7 or 8 counties that have not started the programs as my focus for now, because you have to start somewhere. And we say this year, at least, or the next 2 years, we have managed in this number of counties. And that alone should help, create, other governors can then also begin to plug in. But then, as always, I call upon my stakeholders to help me with this conversation, because the conversation must continue and it must be loud. You must now, within this month of mental health, I am really calling upon you. Call in more experts. Call in these people who are running the focal persons in some of the counties. And there are several. There's Nairobi County, there's Kiambu County, there's a focal person there on mental health. Of course, Kisumu is doing something, Makueni. Call them in. Let's hear what the impact of what they're doing in their own small way has done for Kenyans. Because that alone is enough to wake up a few others. And it can also give voice to the champions who we have on the ground.
We're going to do that.
Important.
And of course, you're going to start with your former senator colleagues. You are now governor.
Yes.
Mutula Kilonzo.
Kilonzo. They
now
seconded
Governor
this
James
act.
Orengo.
Governor Sakaja.
Governor Johnson Sakaja.
Yeah, we need him to upscale. He must upscale Nairobi significantly. In fact, now, because he himself is a mental health champion. And, he had been doing his own, mental health campaigns in small ways. So now that he's governor Nairobi, I expect Nairobi to become the place where people come to learn on how to roll out mental health programs. Although, every county is different, but there's always some learning that can be done. And something else, Eric, this act of parliament is very comprehensive. Today we are just talking about counties, but it has other aspects which I hope one day we can sit down and speak to, like the rights of people living with mental illnesses. Very critical provisions that Kenyans need to know what it has there for them, and that now we no longer need to have the stigma or to be fearful. Even access to mental health care, insurance companies cannot discriminate. And it's prescriptive. It is shall. Yeah, it is shall, which means now you can go to court. You can do a Nokia Mutata on these people.
And we expect you to take over. Now you swap places with Okiya Mtata. He's going to the Senate. Now you go to the
go to court. I go to the streets.
Thank you very much, Sylvia, for coming. The Honorable Architect Sylvia Kasanga, former senator and now mental health champion, talking about integrating the amended Mental Health Act into county programs and county budgets. Remember, if you have not texted the word Shamba to 40299, you are missing out on an opportunity for you to win an acre of land in Nanyuki. We'll tell you more about this, courtesy of AMG Realtors. Good morning, 8 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is New Time, Dennis Aseto. Kenya supports the ongoing African Union-led peace efforts in Ethiopia led by Olusegun Obasanjo. President William Ruto said stability in Ethiopia is as critical as is the region's. He said Africa must strive to coexist for more transformation to be realized in the continent. Ruto said this during Thursday meeting when he held talks with Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed at his office in Addis Ababa. During the meeting, the two leaders agreed on the modalities to tackle terrorism and violent extremism so as to bring peace in the Horn of Africa. In its bid to stabilize food prices, the discussion further agreed that Kenya will import wheat from Ethiopia, whose yields have increased substantially. Now, former Directorate of Criminal Investigations boss George Kinoti has been moved to Public Service Commission following his resignation 10 days ago. The National Police Service Commission announced that it had approved the transfer of services for Kinoti with effect from September 27th, the day he stepped down. According to the Commission, the transfer does not affect his remuneration package. It is now up to PSC to redeploy him to any position in the government. Kinoti's resignation was revealed by President William Ruto while unveiling his cabinet. He served as the country's top detective under former President Uhuru Kenyatta since 2018. The top detective was not in good books with the Kenya Kwanza alliance. As such, his resignation did not come as a surprise when Ruto team won the August 9th general election. President Ruto and his deputy Rigathi Gachagua accused him of being used by the state to weaponize the war on graft during his tenure. Kinoti's deputy, Masa Mrs. Halim, replaced him in an acting capacity until the position, which has since been advertised, is filled. The Council of Governors has given the national government up to Monday next week to release county funds. Chairperson Anwar Guru says the sad state of counties is as a result of delayed disbursement. Guru says county governments are on a brink of total paralysis as the value of overstayed monthly disbursement hit 51 billion shillings. The COG chair adds that the delayed transfer has derailed efforts to respond to drought and crisis management, pay county officials' salaries, buy medical supplies, and advance development projects. Activists and agricultural lobby groups have urged the government to reverse its decision to lift a long-standing ban on genetically modified crops as the country struggles with the crippling drought. The government of President William Ruto on Monday allowed the open cultivation and import of GM crops, saying it was in response to the drought, the worst to hit the country in 40 years. But activists protested the move, raising concerns over the safety of GM foods in a joint statement signed by nearly a dozen groups, including Greenpeace Africa. Kenya, like many other African nations, banned GM crops over health and safety concerns and to protect smallholder farms who account for the vast majority of rural agricultural producers in the country. However, Kenya faced criticism over the ban, including from the United States, which is a major producer of GM crops. Now, ICC lawyer Paul Gashiru was buried in Kwangoko, Bahati, Nakuru County. Gashiru died under mysterious circumstances after he was found unconscious in his current home. Various lawyers led by John Haminu Akatwa Kigi and Supreme Court Judge Mohammed Ibrahim and an ICC official was among those in attendance. His wife Ruth Nyambura described him as a loving and caring man. Investigations into the death are ongoing despite the postmortem report not being made public until his death. Gashiru was facing charges of bribing witnesses at the ICC, which will be drawn if the Kenyan government files an application to drop the case following his death. And former Malindi Ranch Board Chairperson David Ndolo Ngelai admitted signing a land sale and transfer agreement leading to 1 billion shillings fraudulent sale to the government for Konza City Development Project. Ngelai said he approved the sale of the 5,000 acres of land to the Minister of Information and Communication between 2nd February 2009 and January 11, 2010 without shareholders' resolution. In cross-examination, Geoffrey Obiri and Vincent Monda, the first accused person, conceded to having signed the land transfer agreement despite being aware that the government had purchased the said land. He said the government compensation fund of 1 billion shillings towards the acquisition of the land to develop the technology city was received through the account of lawyer advocate Eric Mutua. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Alceto. Good morning.
.5 Spice FM. Kisumu.
Okay, Jogger Road heavy going out towards Kamkunji, but then you're going to get towards that junction at City Stadium roundabout and it should be all right. It's heavy on Landis out then towards that roundabout. There's incoming traffic from Gong Road, but it's manageable. Also looking into Westlands, pretty heavy on James Gashiru out towards Wayaki Way. Limu Road is also still doing that thing for now. United Nations Avenue down out through the Aga Khan Hospital as you get then to that junction that connects the Thika Superhighway with Wangari Maathai Way. It's crazy. Kiambu Road, I don't even know what we can call it right now. I don't know how many lanes we are at. The Thika Superhighway is very busy. Juja Road also doing that thing. Kangunda Road, everybody that touches on Outer Ring today, extremely busy at this hour. We're keeping an eye on things. Still manageable for now, but it's heavy in some parts. Thika Superhighway, use the service lanes this morning. That's what you want to do. You'll be able to get into the CBD much faster. Let's do it. SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching
It's
up,
7 minutes after
not
8.
down.
Good morning, and this is the
This
third hour.
is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
And home and online, YouTube, Facebook, and www.spicefm.co.ke. Next, we want to talk about somebody who wants to go to the Senate. We had somebody who was in the Senate in the 12th Parliament. Somebody wants to join the Senate in the 13th Parliament. Cherotich Say, active citizen. She's here with us. Before we talk to her, let her hear the day's proverb.
This is our final proverb from the country of Libya. The night has ears and the day has eyes.
The night has ears and the day has eyes.
Yes, the night has ears and the day has eyes.
Well done.
Gerald, good morning.
Good morning, my friends.
How you doing?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good to have you again on the hot seat.
Glad to be here again.
Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
Now you want to cross over to the other side where we'll be calling you here and telling you what have you done.
Absolutely. I'm gearing up for that.
Okay.
Yes.
Why we've invited you today is because we want to understand why is an active citizen deciding to cross over the aisle and go to the other side of elective politics. So, guys, I've just looked at you and this is some clear branding. Proper yellow. If there was any doubt.
As to my affiliation.
As to your affiliation.
This yellow appeared before the yellow you are referring to came into force, surely. We've seen this yellow.
Actually, I've been wearing yellow for a very, very long time. It might be the other way around that my colors. I've always loved yellow. So here I am. I think I've even worn yellow here.
You have?
Yes,
that
I
is
have.
how come I know that
Yes.
you always wear yellow. So this man and
now she is fully 100% top to bottom yellow. Then she has others under, but this time today, yellow.
Full package yellow.
Full package. Even the earrings have yellow.
Do they?
Yes.
They do? Oh, yes, they do. They do.
So there's a strategy here that is actually just revealing itself. That from a very long time, even as she was an active citizen,
here we go.
She was the founder of the yellow movement among those in the kitchen cabinet. When Chero was busy telling us about all these things that she was doing, Kumbe, her strategy was simple. Champion UDA victory. If UDA wins, William Ruto becomes president. She looks at her home county. Kipchumba Murkomen, well, in 2017, if anyone goes against Kipchumba Murkomen, they are not likely to win. But if they win, Kipchumba will leave the seat, and here is Chero. Full circle.
Eric, you know what you've just done?
He has just made me an orkoyot.
And it's what we call confirmation bias. Meaning, you think of a situation, then you look for reasons to justify it. Huh?
I'm not looking for reasons. I've just given you proper, substantive reasons. She has not denied.
Eric is not looking for reasons, but he's still giving reasons.
I will neither deny nor confirm.
Yeah. It is called discovery.
He's going the long route to ask, what made you then decide? I mean, it wasn't, one would assume that it wasn't that a vacancy has popped up and said, all right, I have nothing else to do. Let me see if I can become senator for Elgeyo Marakwet. So now the question is, what made you make this decision?
You know, as you call me an active citizen, I'm somebody who has always been passionate about the greater good and about every single person being okay. And this is how you have come to know me over the years, where it's championing the rights of Wanjiku. Now you say I might be championing the rights of Chepkoech, but the point being it has always been about no one is okay until everyone is okay. And it has been not the linear progression that Eric has jokingly referred to, but it has been a continuous build-up of my engagement in public life and aspects of leadership, of advocacy, that at this particular moment in time, when our great Senator Kipchumba Murkomen is now, Waziri Mtarajiwa in that sense, waiting for the vetting to happen, it occurred to me that this is a very logical progression into the space where not only can I be an active citizen, or have I been an active citizen on the outside, but now I can be in the House of Parliament. Because there are many things in the course of our active citizenship, our campaigns for energy justice, even for constitutionalism, that I wish I had had the opportunity to seek direct legislative intervention, to debate, to engage, and to say what is actually going on. I watched the way the House of Parliament has been able to tackle or not tackle issues. For example, even the KEMSA heist or the managed equipment leasing scheme. And I say, why is it that we don't yet have a critical mass of active citizens in the Senate, in the Houses of Parliament, asking these questions on behalf of every single Kenyan citizen who stands to lose when their rights are not well upheld? So it occurred to me that this might be an entry into that legislative space, and you can do a lot. If I have been able to do so much outside without a cent, every single aspect of my active citizenship has been absolutely pro bono and free of charge. Imagine what would happen if we had access to the spaces where we can engage legislatively and see policy formulations come out as a result, push resources where resources are supposed to go, and continue always to champion the rights of Wanjiku. So for me, it's an opportunity to take active citizenship one step further, where I will never be detached from the people I love, the people I serve. And, I also want to add that Elgeyo Marakwet County is not an island floating somewhere in the Indian Ocean. It is one of the 47 counties of the Republic of Kenya, and 48 if you look at the diaspora as a county as well. So it is not just going to then silo myself into Elgeyo Marakwet County to the exclusion of everything else. In fact, during the break, we were talking about issues of peace and security, and Elgeyo Marakwet does not exist on its own. It is surrounded by other counties. And so my role as a legislator would not just simply be to go into the silo of Elgeyo Marakwet, but continue to look nationally, but come specifically to things that affect and impact Elgeyo Marakwet with a view to making sure that the county and its neighbors and the whole country continue to do well. So it won't be now narrowing energy justice activities down to Elgeyo Marakwet. No, we continue to champion the rights, the energy justice rights of all Kenyans, whether they're in Mandera or Migori or Marakwet. So it's a logical progression, and I'm glad that the opportunity has availed itself. These are early days. Parliament still has to vet the cabinet secretaries and so on. But once a vacancy is declared, then we'll see and jump straight into fully fledged campaigns and see whether the people of Elgeyo Marakwet County would like to have me as their senator. And I am a girl from Elgeyo Marakwet County.
If we take a few steps into the future, and assuming that this all comes into play, what happens, because many have been the victim, or rather of circumstance or a situation whereby actively vocal and then going into a position of government and then becoming loudly silent. We have many examples. And so the question is, how then do we know that this would not also happen to Cherotich?
Well, first of all, can you imagine a silent Cherotich?
I can't. And so it's fearful, because to think if such a thing has happened to others, how would it be if that happened?
You will never. And you can call me back here. Put me on this hot seat and ask me why I've been silent. If I do make it to the Senate and I am silent, please call me out every day. Every single Kenyan is invited to ask me why I'm quiet on this and that issue.
Well, you may not be silent, Chero. What you may do is you'll be vocal, but on the other side.
Which other side? I've
The other
always
side
only
of-
been on the side of Wakenya.
That's what they all say. Even when they continue going into parliament and then they become very vocal. We've seen the active citizens of the 90s, and when they got into parliament in 2002, 2007, and thereafter, and you ask,
where did this person go
and
to?
they tell you, no, I still You see, getting there, you realize, and you have to balance, and you see, you've got a wider
different
view of
ballgame
how things are
inside
working.
there, yeah.
I still champion Wanjiko's issues, but I'm pragmatic.
But also, if I may just say this, you know, if you talk to these individuals who were once champions of the community at large and the changes then we speak of, they will tell you that when I was championing for these things, my view of these things was one. When I got in there, I saw things I didn't know of before. So suddenly, yes, I wanted to do what I used to do before, but with the knowledge I now have and the experience that I am now going through, I find I can't do exactly what I used to do before. This is what I've heard many such people.
They're now
who have
operating
spoken.
from a position of deeper and wider knowledge.
Yes, it is. You suddenly realize that the things you are saying were probably more theoretical than real. And now, when you're in the position where you can do something, you realize, I want to, but I can't quite do it the way I used to say it should be done. It's just a reality check.
You know, you're absolutely right. And my reality has already been checked on the outside. I give you an example when it comes to matters of energy. We talk about illegally and irregularly allocated or awarded power purchase agreements. And one of our positions as Switch Off KPLC is cancel those PPAs because they're patently illegal and they were unconstitutionally awarded. Now, the reality is, and we already know it as we follow the procedure, that you cannot have somebody just pick up a pen and strike out the power purchase agreement. There is a process. And so I think what you're referring to, CT, I agree with that. You temper yourself when you're in there, and you could end up being John the Baptist, that lone voice in the wilderness, shouting up and down the halls of Parliament, or you could become so quiet and colorless and succumb to the pragmatism in quotes, or find a very healthy balance where you utilize the platform that you have to continue to question. Like I said, when I saw the KEMSA and the COVID billionaires, I said, you know, what would I do if I was in there? Now, if I do get in there, then you will see what I would do. But there is a balance that one has to strike. But that balance should never be used as the altar on which you sacrifice the ideals of fighting for the rights of all Kenyans. So I hear you, and we have seen it. That it was very true with Kibaki's government, after 2002, many civil society actors got co-opted into the government and neutralized and fizzled out of existence. I think for me, because I am an active citizen as opposed to perhaps being a member of civil society, a member of part of an NGO or a movement, I'm just an individual who is a businesswoman who is hustling like everybody else, trying to survive and making that decision consciously to come out and fight for the rights. I think I am more difficult a person to co-opt and silence and neutralize, because I have no godfather behind me. I have no institutional identity and ethos to maintain. I just come in as a Kenyan who, for the past 5 years, since you've seen me talking about issues of justice for all Kenyans, you see me as the same person, and I don't have anybody that I'm beholden to behind that. But I also want to add, one of the reasons why I supported President William Ruto was the Kenya Kwanza plan, and I spoke about it the last time that we were here. It is a plan that I can get behind, that I have gotten behind, and that is one of the things I would like to see properly implemented if I make it into the House of Parliament at the senatorial level. Because in there, are some of the solutions to the gross inequalities that continue to plague Wanjiko, Chepkoech, Akinyi, whoever it is you want to make reference to. And so I believe that this will be a patently different kind of administration. The proof is in the pudding, the proof is also in the eating, so we are yet to see what will happen. And remember, I said, and I've also said on social media, and I've said on other media, print and electronic media, that I will continue to hold the Kenya Kwanza government, of which I will be a part if I am elected, to account. This is not a question of being co-opted and you disappear into the woodwork and wear your yellow happily and celebrate at national events. In fact, the president himself welcomes healthy, constructive, continuous criticism because he does want to do better and he will do better. And that is why I supported Kenya Kwanza. So that does not disappear. And that filters down to how we look at how resources are pushed to the counties. And the role of the senator is quite clear. The senator is not going to be another MCA or a member of parliament or a governor. The senator sits at the national level to ensure that oversight of the devolution process, including the pushing of resources where they belong, triggering catalytic funding, looking to support the governor, the members of parliament, including the woman rep and the MCAs, to achieve the development objectives there. And also to look at the broader issues, for example, the issue of peace and security. What about women, peace and security? I know the governor of Elgeyo Marakwet County yesterday was with Tekla Lorupe, who has championed peace in the Turkana Pokot Marakwet region for quite a long time. And that type of action is the action that as a senator, one would look at and say, how do we trigger under Resolution 1035 that looks at women, peace and security? How do we trigger further support, further action? So it's not just, again, that siloing of, I'm the senator of Elgeyo Marakwet County, but we are not okay until there's peace across the board. So looking at West Pokot, looking at Turkana, looking at Baringo, looking at Elgeyo Marakwet County.
Talking
so it is that whole macro down, like global, down to the intimate and back out to the global type of action that intrigues me and that I would like to be a part of, to ensure that at the end of the day, President William Ruto has achieved what he set out to achieve. And we need to be there to support him.
Those counties, sorry.
Please go ahead, Eric.
Those counties, the county that you want to represent, Elgeyo Marakwet, you've talked about West Pokot, you've talked about Turkana, Baringo, and others, have not seen peace for a very long time. Now, whether you're elected or not, what do you think is the solution that lies in bringing peace and lasting peace to the people of this region? So that those children who are today not going to school because police are there conducting a security operation, the people, the traders who are not going to the cattle market because there's a security operation, and it keeps happening. And if they go to the cattle market, they're going to take the livestock that was not stolen last night. What should we do to make sure that there is peace here?
You see, for me, and a couple of weeks ago, the horrific attack that left security personnel, military and security personnel dead, and a woman leader. It's almost like Groundhog Day. Every time there's a bit of peace and quiet in the valley, then it flares up again. And I've listened to various experts, whether it's peace and security experts, whether it's politicians and so on. It boils down to there's a couple of interests somewhere that have remained, in my opinion, entrenched and not dislodgeable. They always somehow comes out, like the weaponization of this state of insecurity to either hit, punish, or create a constant flux. There was a time that there was a theory of the movement of livestock. Other time they say, it's just the Pokot youth who have completely gone off the reservation and are doing whatever they want to do. In other cases, it is the destabilization of one county so that another, so there's all kinds of reasons. But at the end of the day, what concerns me is it's the women and the children who are most impacted. And of course, the women and the children who also lose sons, who lose husbands in the course of this violence. So it is one of the things that would be a high priority for me. I attended a funeral last weekend in Keyo North, and a good chunk of the remarks made by those who were speaking also had to do with this same issue. It was the Baringo North MP, there was also the Keyo North MP, there was the Marakwet East, Marakwet West, Keyo South. This is something that continues to preoccupy us. It's something something that I would look at. And you know, when the president said, we are going to end this, Nasio Tafadhali, you know, I want to see how that Nasio Tafadhali will be rolled out, because we literally have to bring to an abrupt halt this continuous, senseless killing. And the fact that those who are doing the killing are so well armed. And I even watched a clip somewhere, I think it was TikTok or YouTube, where this young man casually with his AK-47 found a little bird up somewhere, some tree, and just most casually just fired. And the bird comes down to these are snipers of the highest order.
Do you know the age at which they start handling such weapons?
10, 9.
Yes, so by the time that person is an adolescent, what do you think they can do?
So if you talk about
a human being is a big species.
If you talk about demobilization, so let's say now Nasio Tafadhali kicks in.
Yep.
How do you demobilize these men who have known nothing but fighting?
Actually,
do you shoot them dead?
No.
Do you what do you do? Do you disarm them?
President Ruto probably has an advantage over the other presidents we've had with regard to these issues. I say this because of where he comes from. Now, they may not have these sort of problems in his ancestral background, but he comes from that region. Now, if I am to go by what I have observed to be the capacity for serious intent that he has, okay, then I would argue that currently he's the one person who is in the best position to actually deal with this thing. The way he does his things, directed, purposed movement, you see, there lies a problem here, and that's where your candidature, God willing, you become senator, will have a problem. You will not be dealing with the bandits. The bandits are not really your problem. We are looking at this thing as banditry, and it isn't. It's a business. Anything that can last this long and can be sustained for this length of time, what we're seeing are the symptoms of that business. Because it can't last this long if there are people who don't benefit. There are people who benefit, and that benefit has to be maintained. So you may actually find that the people you're going to be dealing with are not outsiders, people who probably are in the same party as you.
Perhaps, CT, you've even been more bold than I've been speaking to it. That's exactly the point. There was a time years ago I heard about heads of cattle, for example, and I'm not specifically referring to this area of insecurity, although it could be part of the corridor, where there was a movement of thousands of heads of cattle up, going all the way out, across the border, coming back down. So there's something always lucrative there. There's that you could talk about banditry or warriors who are untamed, but you're right. That's a tip. In fact, it benefits those who are benefiting from the bigger criminal activity under there to have this level of instability where you say, oh, there are these bandits who are out of control, these young men who started handling guns at the age of 10 and so on. So what you might have is an uneasy truce, an uneasy peace, and then it will just be a matter of time before it bubbles and boils over. Now, I'm not wanting to be a prophet of doom, because I would very much like this to be sustainably resolved. But what you're talking about is a need to go more radical, because we tend to scratch the surface of problems, then we think we have solved it. It's like you have a pothole, you put the thinnest layer of tarmac, the next rainy season, the pothole is back. So we can look at it that way and say, if we put a very thin layer of tarmac over this problem, the next rainy season, the pothole will be back, and cars will continue to break to damage their tires and their axles on this deep pothole. So you're absolutely right that we have to be radical, and we could run into problems if every time it's like a whack-a-mole. You know, you hit you deal with this, and it crops up there.
Pops up.
Yes. So and then again, you know, when I talked about women, peace and security, you know, you have situations back to that surface, a thin layer of tarmac. The warriors come back and women are ululating, for example. When we begin to engage them, we say, why would you ululate when somebody has gone to kill somebody else's child? Or, you know, so there can be that layer of community engagement where there is that sensitization to say, from a perspective of peace and development, our region will stay like this forever unless we also begin to change our approach to combat and praising the warriors and so on. Alternative. When I think of Marakwet and I think of Lina Kilimo, for example, and what she did to end FGM there, or to bring FGM to an end, talking about alternative rites of passage, for example, you know, she took something that has been part and parcel of the fabric of the community for decades and said, well, let's come up with something different. So when we look at peace and security, when we look at long-lasting peace, it's also saying, how do we turn some of the things that we think has just been part of us for so long into something else more sustainable and that allows people to go to the marketplace, children to go to school. It stops mothers from burying their 8-year-olds and so on and so forth. So there's a lot to be done. And that is but the tip of the iceberg of what needs to be dealt with if I became senator of Elgeyo Marakwet County, because there's issues of environment, there's issues of youth unemployment. There's so much more that we need to deal with.
Let's take a break and then continue this conversation shortly. 8:30. This is the Situation Room. Cherotich, active citizen, wants to be the senator for Elgeyo Marakwet County. Should Parliament next week vet and approve the nomination of Kipchumba Murkomen to the cabinet, and then he resigns and that seat is declared vacant and an election is announced, then she will be in the race. That's what you're saying. So first of all, you'll have to battle it out for the UDA ticket.
Yeah.
Where? A tough one. In Elgeyo Marakwet, there's 4G connectivity, courtesy of Airtel. City Abu tell about.
You know, that business that once upon a time people had, when to be able to get connectivity, you looked for high ground or climbed a tree. Over and done with. It's not just fast connectivity, but it's available throughout the country, irrespective of where you are. Take your pick. Think of any region. Think of it as remote as you possibly can think. You will get connectivity. And it will be fast and it will be reliable. And affordable.
All those points. Courtesy of Airtel. We're giving away some airtime today. Go to our social media handles, SpiceFM KE, on Twitter and Facebook. You'll find we're asking you, who are you sending money to this weekend via Airtel Money? Because it's free to send Airtel money from Airtel to Airtel. Free. And also, if you go and pay and you're given, a till number or a pay bill number, you can pay from your Airtel money. Till ni till. 28 to 9. We'll be back shortly.
Cloudy conditions at 16 in Nairobi, highs of 25, and we'll see highs of 24 in a mostly sunny Nakuru at 15. 16 in light rain in Nyeri, highs of 24, and 23 the high in a sunny Eldoret this morning. Currently at 16, light rain in Mombasa at 25, highs of 29, and highs of 29 as well in a rainy Malindi at 26. It's 21 and sunny in Kisumu, highs of 28, and highs of 27 in Kakamega, where the sun is out as well, at 20. Partly sunny at 21 in Kampala, highs of 27, and 30 will be the high in Dar es Salaam, where it's sunny at 24. 20 and partly sunny in Johannesburg, a warm high of 30 today, and highs of 29 in a rainy Lagos at 24. Light rain at 25 in Kinshasa. It'll go to highs of 32 and lows of 23.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
Yeah! You're listening to Spice
It still
FM.
continues. It's really busy on Uhuru Highway heading out into the CBD and then out towards Westlands. Jogger Road hasn't done too poorly today, but Landis Road, that's another story, going towards Kamkunji. It's been busy coming off Juja Road, everything connecting with Outer Ring today, and then coming off the Thika Superhighway. We're looking also at Kangunda Road, busy, then joining with Muranga Road there at the Globe Cinema overpass. Okay, let's keep an eye on things. Let's circle back half an hour or so and see what it looks like. SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Mornings
done right.
Here with us, she's an active citizen. She is an aspirant for the soon-to-be declared vacant seat of Elgeyo Marakwet Senator. And we are asking, why is an active citizen deciding to move into elective politics, and what is it that we expect to see? We have seen the other very vocal active citizen becoming the senator for Busia County. And he sat here and we asked him, so now, who will be going to court on our behalf? And he said, no, I will still be very active in everything that I do. So you're telling us the same thing.
Absolutely.
Even if I go to the Senate, I'll still be as active as that. Now let's talk about the local politics. There are very many people whom we've seen expressing interest to run for this seat. Many of them under UDA, and then others who may not even go under UDA, maybe others will go independent. What is your strategy?
Oh, my strategy. First of all, I think it's wonderful. I mean, it's actually people being able to exercise their rights, their franchise. And of course, there's a running joke that, if your bomber has not produced an aspirant, there's something wrong with your bomber. so there's very, 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 very many of us. And, I know some of the aspirants, I know of some of the aspirants. And, by and large, we're a pretty decent bunch of people. And I think it's excellent, those who want to give themselves, offer themselves for service and so on. It's a good indicator that you have people who want to serve and who want to lead. But I believe for me, the strategy or even my comparative advantage is the fact that I continue to completely understand what the role of a senator is. If I do believe that Elgeyo Marakwet County, like all the other counties, will find local solutions to local problems. But this is why you have layers of leadership. This is why you have your member of county assembly who will work with the governor, who will also work with the members of parliament, the woman rep there. So the local solutions to the local problems are being sought. If you look at the County Integrated Development Plan, which I've had occasion to study at length, also not just Elgeyo Marakwet's, but other counties, CIDPs as well, it's very clear that the county knows what it needs to do and has some priority areas of focus. That was part of the CIDP 2018 to 2022, coming to an end this year, to then flag off a new one for the next cycle. So for me, my strategy, my space, my area of advantage is that I know that my role is absolutely national. My role is to say, what is it, Governor Wesley Rotich, that you are implementing or trying to do? What is it that you, the Member of Parliament, Marakwet West or Marakwet East or Keyo North, Keyo South, need to do to push your constituency and then the county at large forward? And what can I do to trigger and dislodge additional resources to help you do what you need to do? My role is to do the resource mobilization, to advocate at that national level, to look at the legislative spaces and then provide the policy way forward and say, look, if we're looking at issues of conservation or if we're looking at issues of the Hanging Valley and the degradation of the Hanging Valley along along EMC, what do we need to do? What policy directives do we have? Is there some aspect of legislation? Is there a bill that I need to sponsor that would help us look better at this issue of the protection of our environment? So it is that level. It is looking at catalytic funding. You know, the president has many plans for Kenya. But we also know that our coffers are a little bit on the lean side. And so we know that even in terms of devolution, not enough money is going down to the counties. What do I need to do as senator in the interim? Do I have access to resources, to donors, and then I now go back and fish back into my life in the United Nations, working for international organizations, my regional, my global networks and contacts that would say, can we trigger some work around women and cooperatives? You know, so it is knowing the power here is knowing what you're supposed to be doing. So if I go to the ground and I campaign saying, we are going to drill a borehole, we are building a primary school, then am I trying to be the 5th MP, 6th MP?
Will the people understand that? So somebody on Twitter called Emmanuel Mayo, he calls himself the Duke of Elgeyo. He says most of our youths are unemployed, especially from Keyo South. How will you tackle this if you're lying?
First of all, I tackle it not by trying to do the work of the Member of Parliament who's been elected there, but by sitting and discussing with the Member of Parliament, the MCAs in that area and the governor to say, the EMC government, to say, what are the plans that we have in place to deal with this level of unemployment? And it is true, when I'm there myself, the number of unemployed youth standing in centers, sitting around, even now, since I declared my interest, how many young people have said, can I be part of your campaign? Can I be with you? There is a high level of unemployment. And I want to admit that it's not just an Elgeyo Marakwet issue. It's throughout the country. So it's not a unique situation. But looking at what we have as a county in terms of our natural resources, the opportunity to expand the economy through, for example, tourism, through productive economic activities around agriculture. You know, you look at the degradation of the Hanging Valley, and I come from Keyo South, and if you look at Keyo South, and by Hanging Valley I mean you have the highland up there, then you have the Hanging Valley, and then you have the floor of the Kerio Valley. It's bald. It's been cultivated, heavily cultivated, a high level of deforestation. Whereas when you keep going north, you go to Keyo North and you're going into Marakwet, it's still quite thick forest cover, as I remember it when I was a child for Keyo South. So it is a question of saying, so what are we doing? Do we need to restore the Hanging Valley? Do we need to get into fruit farming? Do we need to get young people into gainful but profitable employment, which is both, for example, securing food security, but also restoring the soil that is prone to landslides. And those landslides can be pretty lethal. Also, to restore the water catchment and processes. If you go up and down the length of the escarpment, you have Torok Falls, you have all these waterfalls that come. And by the way, we are also source for Lake Victoria and Lake Turkana. And when I was little, again, now this is in the 70s and the 80s, you would come down and there would be all these seasonal streams continuously. When you're driving, you drive over a stream and another stream. Today, when you go, they're virtually non-existent. So if you're looking at all these unemployed young people, what can we do within the space of agriculture? Reviving cooperatives, have youth cooperatives that might get into fruit farming, for example, have these tremendous orchards. I ate the most delicious mangoes. Every time I'm there, I remember how sweet and tamu. Have you eaten those tiny little mangoes like this? Yeah. Oh yeah, you know, you grew up in Tambach, so you're very familiar with that. But it is about being outside the box and saying, what can we do? But also understanding that maybe our young people need to seek opportunities further afield. We are not stuck permanently and trapped inside Elgeyo Marakwet County or Vihiga County or Lamu County. Maybe there are opportunities. Look at me, I'm from EMC and I live in Nairobi. And I have found my living not just in Nairobi. across the continent and around the world. So what can we do to be more innovative around this high rate of unemployment? Yes, City.
You know,
yes.
From a policy perspective, me, I'm sold.
You're sold.
If
do you vote in Tambach?
I vote in Kilimani. From a policy perspective, you've painted a beautiful picture. That won't get you elected. Because people want to know the solutions you're bringing today, not 10 years to come, today. How you are able to impact these things that you're saying, how they can make sense today. I'm using today because the problems that our people have are with them today, not tomorrow. Now, if it means encroaching on the turf of the MP, so be it. Because if the MP was doing what they were supposed to do, some of these problems, I'm talking about economic problems, not the business of banditry, no. Then you wouldn't need to. But if there is a gap, remember, you represent the entire county. So you can step on as many toes as you possibly can. Because if something isn't being done, county level, it is your job to ensure it works. If the governor isn't doing something, because the governor has the mandate and the resources to be able to put in place some of these policies and to also solve these problems you're talking about, the messaging, if it does not relate to the immediate solutions or the near immediate solutions of the electorate, they will say, very good idea, but question, how does it help me today?
That's fantastic. That is absolutely fantastic, and I couldn't have said it better myself, and I completely agree with you. I think my strategy is that I don't walk into a room guns blazing, because many of these MPs are brand new. I think there's only one who is third term member of parliament now, and so I don't walk into a room with my AK-47, if we continue with the insecurity analogy, and start firing left, right and center. Mine is a cooperative approach. It is to say, hey, my brother, my sister, what do you have in mind? These are some of the ideas that I have. But I agree that when I'm there campaigning, because when you're campaigning, what you're basically saying is you need to be pretty populist when you're campaigning. You need to say, I will bring you this today.
You must.
And I understand that, and I do.
She must promise that.
Yes,
no,
but
the thing she can do, you see, at the level of senator, you see, the things that a senator can do are very many. And those are the things that people must understand and how they relate to them, as I said, immediately, today.
Triggering resources. You see, my comparative advantage is access to spaces. You see, the women who are selling mbogas down there in Biretwa when I was leaving Keyo North last weekend, you look at it and they're selling a bunch of managu. A big bunch of managu like this. And I asked the lovely lady, how much is this? So me, I was expecting, okay, it's shag, so you expect it to be slightly cheaper. That bunch was 50 bob. This. And you say, how on earth is she making any money? Because by the time you go and buy it in wherever, Carrefour or your Mama Mboga around the corner, you'll buy that same bunch for what?
150.
No, more. 300, 400. You'll buy it
was that big a bunch?
It was a huge bunch of managu. So now you're asking practically what can happen. And we're not talking about election handouts where you're giving people money to vote for you. No, we're talking about saying, what if there is a discretionary amount of money sitting in some ambassadors' budget line around women and cooperatives, women, and value add to their agricultural activities, and say we're triggering a release of X number of $1,000, which may not look like a lot in the larger scheme of things, but will allow that little sacco of women. Because I asked the ladies, are you part of a sacco? They said, yes, tuna sacco yetu hapa. So what could I do in that moment to say, within the next month, within the next few weeks, we see how to get some money to you, so that the activities that you had will be, that's why I call it catalytic. The funding is catalytic. It's not the development funds. It's not what the governor has looked at in his budget within the CIDP. So it is those promises, and this business of promising and lying, and this is why people are so often jaded, because people will stand and say, I'll bring you this, I'll bring you that, then you vote them in and they disappear.
Yes.
I'm one who engages in realism. And I say, look, we can make a difference. And I'm also an optimist. I'm a realistic optimist. And we can engage in activities that will do step by step to a place where when the funding finally kicks in for the larger, let's say, environmental restoration, we already have pockets of young people who are planting trees. Of course, the trees that you plant, you will not eat the fruit of tomorrow.
Yeah.
So it's finding that, but finding a way also to communicate it in a way that it is filled with hope, to say, actually, what you're doing today will have an impact in 9 months, will have an impact in a year. But today, in the immediate, what are you going to do? Then you look at the Hustler Fund. So part of my role as a senator is to say, wapi hiyo Hustler Fund, and when is it trickling down? When can young people begin to engage? Because not everyone is a farmer. Maybe it is some other economic activity they wanted to engage in. And like I said, you go to all these centers and you find unemployed young people. How can we trigger the release of the resources to them? And mine is a cooperative approach, not a combative approach. The members of parliament, the governor, the MCAs will be my close and personal friends because they're the ones who will be delivering on the ground. Unless I want to trade with them and say, please come to Senate, mimi niende nikafanya development on the ground. So it is finding that way, that sweet spot. And I'm a great lover of Elgeyo Marakwet County. You know, even though I now live in Nairobi, but I've been a resident or a citizen or a part of Elgeyo Marakwet County for almost 48 years, if I am to tell you. For almost 48 years, I have been a part of Elgeyo Marakwet County.
In fact, Jero, so your family, in fact, let's ask that question, all right? Kenya, we really like tying ties into familial ties and seeing where we talk about Magani and all. So the people of Elgeyo Marakwet know you from KO, and they know your family. Your mother, the Ambassador Tabitha Sehi, was one of those who were the iron ladies of the days when she went up against Nicholas Biwott for a parliamentary seat. And she's been in active politics for a while. Is that likely to add or minus from your race? Is it likely for you to separate yourself from, I am Cherotich Say, forget about Major John Say and Tabitha Say, but I am myself, or are those going to play?
Well, again, like I said, being almost 48, since I've once again outed myself here, I am a separate individual because I am a mom, I'm a wife, I'm somebody who has her own space and her own life. And for my campaign, I come myself. I don't come, they say these dynasty stories. I come myself. However, I would be remiss or I would be less than genuine if I did not add that there is indeed that understanding. This, are you the daughter of Sei? So there is that recognition, especially in KO South. And the people of KO South understand how Ambassador Tabitha Sei fought, and alongside my father, Major Sei, and how we bore the brunt of being one of the few Kalenjin families in the opposition in the 1980s. And I mean, my father was fired from the military. There was a lot of harassment. It was a terrible time. So I grew up as a child with that particular legacy and into adulthood. So that is always going to be there. That said, the other elephant in the room is my mother is in Azimio. You see, I've been called a mole. All of I realized I was trending because they thought I was an Azimio mole. My mother is in Azimio. We are a very democratic family. Clearly. It doesn't mean she doesn't support me or doesn't love me, and it doesn't mean I don't love her and respect her and even support her. But it just goes to show that we can be completely separate individuals. So I respect and love my parents. I appreciate their legacy. There are many young people in Elgeyo Marakwet County who don't know that history. They know probably the last 10 years, so they might not know who she is. But the older generation, my generation and those older, do understand that there's a very important role that was played by the Seis in the 80s, fighting for the second liberation and for pluralism. So that is a balance that I manage quite well. And by and large, I think it has not harmed my prospective candidature, but I will continue to stand alone and run alone because I will not be going to the Senate with my mom and my dad. I will be going alone. But they're the ones that introduced me to Elgeyo Marakwet County. I'm the family historian. I can tell you our family tree back to 1620. It is my father who gives me all of that information, and I can tell you what clan, this and that and the other. So there are even those people who are saying, lakini anaongea lugha ama what does she? I say, I could come to SpiceFM and say, and I start talking. So it's not really about the language I'm using or not using, but the fact that do I know, do I understand, do I appreciate what it means to come from Elgeyo Marakwet County and also appreciate what it means to be a Kenyan. And that for me is really my first and undying love, that I'm a Kenyan. And I could live in Lamu, I could live in Garissa, I could live in Marsabit, I could live anywhere, and I'll always love this country. But I'm especially proud of my county, Elgeyo Marakwet. And I'd also like to say, I'd be remiss, Kipchumba Murkomen, Senator, soon to be Cabinet Secretary, has done a fantastic job of representing and raising the profile of Elgeyo Marakwet County. And so it is also going to be big shoes that one has to fill.
That's a question
and
that I
he found
wanted
that
to
balance.
ask.
He found that balance between being a senator of Elgeyo Marakwet County and a national leader, which he was and is and will continue to be.
That's what I wanted to ask. Legislatively, if you're looking at the county, I mean, with Senator Murkomen and the work that he did, what needs to be done today?
To continue to further his work?
Exactly.
I mean, he's when he goes into the cabinet, he will have left a great number of activities ongoing in terms of his support for the development in Elgeyo Marakwet County. And it will, whoever takes over, behoove them to spend some time also with him and say, where were you? Where had you reached? If you haven't already done that research, and say peace and security is a huge issue, economic development and empowerment, issues of youth and unemployment, the protection of the environment. The same things that I've spoken to are things that he has championed and will continue to champion, even as he's looking at the issues of infrastructure, roads and infrastructure, and hopefully that 10 to 12% coverage in terms of tarmac in Elgeyo Marakwet County, as well as the rest of the country, will see a massive boost over the next number of years in his tenure as Cabinet Secretary, if he is indeed vetted successfully by the Parliament. So there's a lot that he did, and there's a lot that we can continue to do, whoever it is who is successful in this particular bid, to carry on his good work, to fill his shoes, but also create, one's own identity and profile. For me, if I come into the Senate, I'm already the active citizen. Just like Okiya Omtata will not stop being comrade, I will not stop being active citizen, even though I would be senator of Elgeyo Marakwet County. Yeah.
Did you ask the question you wanted to ask?
I did.
Did you?
You didn't. Where were you?
Second part.
Oh, what was the second?
You never ask her one question just like that and just leave it going, There are very many people standing in their comment and saying, yeah, you articulate on matters of policy and all. I hope that also translates on how you engage with the people on the ground that you're seeking the votes from. Many people who are seeking this seat. We interviewed Tim Kipchumba, who's an entrepreneur and a mentor as well. On Monday, we'll be interviewing somebody else here for the same position. First Speaker of the County Assembly of Elgeyo Marakwet. His name is Albert Kochei. He is now the Vice Chairperson of the Center for Multi-Party Democracy. So just like Tiori is saying, that Elgeyo Marakwet is really blessed to have very, very good people who want to take this seat. So we wish you all the best, Chero. You're a friend of the show.
Thank you.
Always welcome. Should you get elected, you'll be coming here and we'll be putting you on this. Our job on this show, like is to make sure that we support our leaders by telling them the truth.
Absolutely.
When they do well, we tell them. When they don't do well, we tell them.
I would be disappointed if you did any less than that.
Very good.
Yes.
Come back again. But on the 30th, make sure you're around Nairobi, because that's the time when we'll be running. And
I knew you were going to. Are we walking?
This is the thing.
Are we going to walk?
The thing they didn't say run the marathon. They said participate in the marathon.
Elgeyo Marakwet County is the home of champions. But many are called, few are chosen. So I'm cheering squad. We shall walk.
There's a family fun run walk.
Fun run walk. We'll do that. We are with you.
How many are those now today?
2.
I'm doing well. Every day I'm getting my recruits.
Every day.
Ebu, you call me and we go walking.
No, on a serious note.
You'll only forgive me if I'm on the ground at that point in time. I'll walk where I am.
You'll do the virtual one.
I'll do the virtual one.
The 23rd and the 30th.
Elgeyo Marakwet County, it's very easy
so
to
every
do
day, as you are actually doing your campaigns, that will be you doing your virtual 10 kilometers
Tena,
every
the
day.
hilly terrain.
Up and down.
Maybe that 1 kilometer will feel like 3 or 4.
I love
so
it.
I'll have done 20 or 30.
Yes, there we go.
Yes,
I love it.
yes.
Register for the Standard Charter Nairobi Marathon taking place on the 30th of October and the virtual run taking place from the 23rd to the 30th. 42 kilometers full marathon, 21 kilometers half marathon. Full marathon, people from Eldoret Marathon
Hiyo ni rahisi sana.
Chap chap.
Chap chap.
NairobiMarathon.com. Go there, register, and start preparing. Feel like an athlete. We'll be doing it at the end of this month. Charotich Sei, active citizen, aspirant for the seat of Elgeyo Marakwet Senate when it's declared vacant. When? We are not even talking about, because Kipchumba is also our friend and we're wishing him all the best. Ingia cabinet atutengeneze hii Mombasa Road kwanza.
And you call him also?
Hii Mombasa Road hii atengeneze akiwa transport minister. Kuna mambo sijui nini. Keep it here for more conversations coming up in the next hour. It's Healthy Friday, 9 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is Newsroom Dennis Aseto. The National Police Service Commission has withdrawn a circular that directed the stoppage of a salary increment for 1,233 graduate police constables. In a statement, the Commission's chair, Eliud Kinuthia, said it had withdrawn 2 circulars issued in December last year. This is in compliance with the court order declaring the stoppage of upgraded salaries as unreasonable and unlawful. The graduate police officers had been lowered in rank from inspectors to constables shortly after admission to the police service. Further, NPSC has advised the Acting Inspector General of Police Nur Gabu and the Acting Director of Criminal Investigations Boss Hamisi Masa to pay the affected graduates a backdated salary equivalent to Job Group J. The government has called for a review of areas perennially affected by drought cycles in the country. Stakeholders have also emphasized an urgent mapping strategy to combat the raging drought, which has hit even regions outside arid and semi-arid lands. This was discussed during a bilateral meeting between development partners and Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua at his office. Gachagua called for urgent measures to be focused within sub-counties and ward levels across the country. And Kwale Governor Fatuma Achani has said that administration will spearhead tourism industry revival through inclusive and sustainable tourism products. Achani said the devolved unit will seek to restore confidence and reactivate the tourism sector to rebuild a more resilient tourism economy in the future. She underscored the need to focus on the development of domestic tourism because of its huge potential to the local economy, saying her administration would harness the potential of the sector to boost revenues. Achani said, though the country's tourism and hospitality industry was badly hit by the global COVID-19 pandemic, her administration will work closely with the national government and other stakeholders to ensure that the industry recovers from the ravages of the pandemic. Now, a teacher in Nyansiongo, Nyamira County is in police custody for allegedly raping a student. Borabu Police Commander Richard Chacha said the suspect will be arraigned today to answer to the charges against him. The father of 12-year-old girl has expressed his disgust after the incident, demanding that action be taken against the teacher.
Mimi ni mzazi wa huyu mtoto. Amekuwa kwa hii shule kwa miaka 3 sasa. Ndio alikuja akiwa class 4. So juzi tu ndio nimepigwa simu tarehe 4 kwamba ilikuwa saa 11 jioni. Mtoto walikuwa wanaenda chapel kwa maombi. Huyo deputy head teacher akamuita kando, akamfungia kwa ofisi yake. So alipofanya hiyo kitendo akamaliza, wakati ametoka hivi ndio walimu wengine wakanoti kwamba huyu mtoto mbona anakaa amechelewa, anatoka wapi. Kumuita kumfanyia uchunguzi, mtoto akaadmit kwamba mwalimu amenifanyia kitendo hii ya maajabu.
We hope that justice is served and the child gets the attention she needs now. Buckle up for higher fuel prices after some of the world's top oil-producing countries agreed to cut the amount they export. Members of OPEC Plus, a group that includes Saudi Arabia and Russia, said they will slash production by 2 million barrels per day. The group said it wanted to stabilize prices, which have fallen in recent months as the world economy slows. But the decision raised fears that prices for motorists will climb. Expectations that countries were planning to pump less had already pushed oil prices higher this week. The price of a barrel of Brent crude jumped another 2% to more than $93 a barrel. A spokesperson for the RAC Motoring Group said that the reduction would inevitably lead to higher oil prices, forcing up the wholesale cost of fuel. The cut announced by the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries and Allies marks the biggest reduction by the group since the height of the pandemic in 2020. And Namibia has confirmed 54 cases of swine flu from 190 samples. According to the Ministry of Health in Namibia, the areas near the capital city of Windhoek are among the most affected. Among the symptoms of swine flu are headaches, fever, and high body temperature. Between the year 2009 and 2010, a large outbreak of swine flu was reported in Namibia, where approximately 8,000 people were suspected of being infected. However, only 102 cases were confirmed and one person died. The Indian government has said it is investigating 7 types of children's medicine believed to be unsafe and which was sold to Gambia. The investigation follows the warning issued yesterday by the World Health Organization after 66 children died. The medicine under investigations are promethazine oral solution, cofexmalin baby cough syrup, Markov baby cough syrup, and Magrip and cold syrup. Initial investigations indicated that the drugs contained high levels of ethylene glycol and ethylene glycol toxins, which are dangerous to human health. The children who died were found to have injuries in their kidneys. This is News. I'm Dennis Asseto. Good morning.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Where? It's still thick on the Thika Superhighway this morning. I don't know. Where are people going? It's okay now, small. But coming from the junction of Outer Ring, and it's still heavy as you go out towards the Pangani underpass. Still pretty heavy traffic. Kiambu Road doing much better. We're still seeing something going on Limuru Road. And then coming in from Westlands, that's still pretty busy. James Gashiru here and there, but nothing too terrible. Coming off of Outer Ring, there was an issue earlier. Juja Road, Kangundo Road, Manyanja Road. Everybody had an issue moving, but still slow. We'll keep an eye on things and see what happens around about 9:30. Let's talk on SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up,
7 after 9,
down.
good morning. Welcome
This
to the
is the
final hour of the show this week, the 7th day of October 2022. Remember, if you have not texted the word Shamba to 40299, you are harming yourself because you're denying yourself an opportunity to win free land. Who gives away free land in this country? Free.
I think AMG does.
Hey. That's the only entity that would do that. AMG Realtors is giving away free land. How many acres, City?
Well, inaanza na moja. Then there's a grand draw. Now, grand here is really grand because you move from the possibility of winning 1 acre to now 5.
Only you.
And 5. You know, 5 acres is a heck of a lot of land.
5 acres is huge, Buana.
It's a whole country.
5 acres is huge. Hey. And it's in Nanyuki.
It's in Nanyuki.
Where you actually get up and see Mount Kenya. So have you been able to go to Nanyuki yet?
No.
Ask those of us who've been there.
No, I want to go and experience it for myself.
Oh, so we shouldn't tell you about it?
No.
Okay, MG Realtors can actually also take you to Nanyuki to see this particular piece of land, 10-acre piece of land that they're giving away, and also the other lands that they're selling. Now, when you text Shamba to 40299, What you'll receive is information about where else AMG Realtors is selling land. Now decide what you'd like to buy, from as little as 150,000 to 4.7 million different pieces of land. There's Kangundo, there's Juja, there's Naivasha, there's Malindi. Every 50,000 shillings spent is a ticket to the draw, and the draw is regulated by the Betting Control and Licensing Board. And one person wins an acre, another person wins an acre. One person has already won an acre, 4 acres to go to individuals, and then the grand draw where somebody wins 5 acres. Anyway, it's a Healthy Friday, so Health Friday conversation continues. This time we want to talk about the dangers of smoking and the vagaries of attempting to quit smoking for those that are already smokers. Our guest is in the studio. We'll welcome him shortly by giving him the day's proverb.
Yes, indeed. This is our final proverb from the country of
Libya.
Yes. The night has ears and the day has eyes.
The night has ears, the day has eyes.
Yes.
The night has ears, the day has eyes. The night has ears, the day has eyes. Dr. Michael Kariuki, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you.
Welcome to the hot seat.
Thank you.
When you hear that proverb, do you relate?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The night has ears and the day has eyes. I mean, it's rather clear that during the day you are likely to see a lot. As opposed to the night where you'll have to depend on your ears like the bats do. So watch out what you're doing during the day, because you'll be seen. Absolutely.
And watch out what you do during the night, because you'll be heard. Either way, watch out.
Watch out.
Be careful what you're doing, wherever you are. Daktari, you are very many things. You're a pediatrician. You are, what else are you? A researcher. What else are you? Very many things, Bwana.
Yes. I'm Dr. Kariuki Michael. I'm a pediatrician. That is where my passion is. I take care of children who are sick and restore health. We all know that God gives health, and He uses us as pediatricians and doctors generally to restore their health. This is a very noble profession because we know the language of children. A child will not tell you, I'm sick. But when you bring one to a pediatrician, they'll be able to figure out what is happening to this child. On the other hand, I'm an epidemiologist. An epidemiologist is a scientist who essentially deals with the study of distribution of disease and how disease patterns come about, and how do we develop policies, how do we implement measures to curb diseases. And these are specialists who are very critical, especially when we have outbreaks or when you have a certain matter of public health importance that needs to be brought on board for the public to know exactly how do we prevent ourselves from falling sick. And with that comes with research. Yes. So those are my...
That's who you are.
Exactly.
And you champion there for public health and the health of children.
Exactly.
In the public space. Talking about research, a new research from the Institute of Psychiatry, Psychology and Neuroscience at King's College in London has found that the use of vaping products rather than smoking leads to a substantial reduction in exposure to toxicants that promote cancer, lung disease and cardiovascular diseases. This independent report, commissioned by the Office of Health Improvement and Disparities in the Department of Health and Social Care, represents the most comprehensive review of the risk of vaping to date. It found that while vaping is not risk-free, particularly for people who have never smoked, it poses a small fraction of the health risks of smoking in the short to medium term. Now, we're having this conversation with you today because of that issue of smoking and vaping. It's been a public debate in Kenya for a while in terms of, are we allowing vaping? Is it a good thing to do? Is it wise to allow people to vote to vape freely? Should vaping be considered under the Tobacco Control Act? There's no tobacco product in vaping, and all those things, and e-cigarettes and such. Now, from your point of view, the smoking and the dangers of smoking are clear, are they not?
Yes, thank you very much. Just to begin off, one may wonder what is a pediatrician doing with smoking? And just to put into perspective, smoking cigarettes, or what we call combustible cigarettes, is one of those things in health that is extremely detrimental to both the unborn child and the child who is born and growing up. We've had a lot of premature deliveries, children born with congenital issues, children born with dependence because the mothers have been exposed to smoking cigarettes. And definitely our purview in pediatrics goes all the way to young adults. And smoking has a huge detrimental effect on the health of whoever is using that product and whoever is exposed to the smoke, or what we call the second-hand smoke. And of course, this is a gap that needs to be very well elucidated and brought out, because all along we've had a lot of measures to try and tell people quit smoking. But studies are showing, especially the Tobacco Atlas that was released the other day, which is a paper essentially, that smoking in lower and middle income countries is rising. And smoking in the developed countries is dropping. So one wonders, why is this the case? Yeah, why is it that in Kenya, for example, we have 3 million smokers? In actual sense, the correct figure is about 10%, which is
of
about
the population.
4.5 of the adults.
Okay.
Of the adults. And they smoke both factory-made cigarettes and homemade cigarettes. And if the trend continues, then we are likely to have an epidemic, which epidemiologists usually deal with, of tobacco, what we call a tobacco epidemic. So we need to ask ourselves, why are the smoking rates going up and the smoking rates in developed countries going down? And now that is where these products come in, whereby we are saying so many researches that have been done out there, starting off, let's say, with England, Public Health England. They faced the same situation years back. And they sat down and asked themselves, how can we reduce our smoking rates? 75,000 of our citizens in England die every year due to smoking-related illnesses. In Kenya here, our figures are about 8,000. And we believe the figures in Kenya could even be more. We are underreporting. And they commissioned several studies over this few decades ago to try and find out how can we help our smokers quit. On the other hand, World Health Organization did also recognize that indeed smoking is a problem, and smokers and the general public need to be protected. And they came up with the Framework Convention for Tobacco Control, of which Kenya is a signatory. And they came up with 5 key messages, what we call Empower. We need to monitor our tobacco products. We need to protect the those who don't smoke, especially second-hand product. O is for we need to offer help to to those who are smoking to quit smoking. W is we need to warn people on the dangers of smoking. And the last R is we need to raise taxes on tobacco
as a deterrent.
As a deterrent. Over the decades, we have seen that the strategies, yes, they are working, but the implementation on offering the smoker help has lagged behind.
So the
O has lagged behind. In fact, it's postulated that the implementation of the O is less than 20% of all the member states.
The R must have been the highest.
R is the highest.
Of course. So
R is the highest because taxes are being raised and all that. And the WHO came up with ways. Now, how do we assist these smokers quit? There are various medical ways of assisting smokers quit. And more so after WHO recognized that smoking is a disease that causes dependence, just like alcoholism. You become hooked to the cigarettes because of the nicotine. And you just can't tell somebody one morning, stop smoking. They won't. In fact, like in Kenya, of every 100 smokers who smoke, 30 of them attempt to quit smoking. And only 7 succeed.
What?
Yes, only 7% succeed. And there is a very high likelihood that of those 7, they will relapse back into smoking 6 months, 1 year down the line. And the WHO has various modalities that they recommend, which have been adopted by all the party nations. We have nicotine replacement therapies, behavioral treatments, we have pharmacotherapy, we have drugs that actually assist smokers to quit. But at the end of the day, when we evaluate the gains that have been made, we seem not to be moving. In fact, we are moving several steps back. And that is what these developed nations realize, that yes, we have tried to implement this. What else can we do? What other alternatives can we do? In about 2003, a Chinese pharmacist by the name of Dr. Hans Locke had been smoking cigarettes for more than 4 decades. His father died out of lung cancer because of smoking. And when the pharmacist sat down by himself, he asked himself, yes, I have used the WHO recommended ways of stopping smoking, but they are not assisting me. And which are these ways? Nicotine replacement therapies. He was using something we call a nicotine patch, which is an elastoplast embedded with nicotine. Then you stick it on your skin. It releases the nicotine in smaller doses. So he had used that for several years, and he was not smoking. He had combined that with behavioral therapy. Then he asked himself, what can I do? There is a critical behavioral aspect that I seem to miss. And with all his medical knowledge, he was able to develop the first e-cigarette. An e-cigarette is a device that looks like a cigarette that has pure nicotine in various milligrams that is heated by the device. So it has a heater. Once the nicotine is heated, it vaporizes, becomes vapor. And the good pharmacist was able now to inhale the vapors in what we call metered doses. So he started with a certain amount, he went on reducing, and the method worked.
He was able to stop.
And he was able to stop. And later he sold the patent for 10 billion shillings.
So, Dr. are we saying that for smoking a cigarette, that the act of lighting a match and then the smoke is what causes harm? Because if the nicotine is still present in the e-cigarette or in vape, which we'll talk about in a bit, if the nicotine is still present, which as it is in a cigarette, so is it the act of smoking that causes problems?
Yes, absolutely. The act of burning that
Burning,
cigarette,
yeah.
what we call combustion, when you burn and light up that cigarette, it releases more than 5,000 products, one of which is nicotine. And all the studies, even by WHO and leading scientists, have made one conclusion, that these products are carcinogenic. These are the products that cause you the cardiovascular diseases, cause you the lung issues, bring up the cancer and all that. And more specifically, we need to understand that WHO has clearly stated that nicotine is not carcinogenic.
So nicotine is not carcinogenic.
Nicotine is not carcinogenic.
So what in the cigarette then is carcinogenic?
Yes, I can just mention a few
And
things.
this is in
we have.
tobacco.
Correct. Once you burn that cigarette, it will release one of the biggest products that we know as tar, the black substance, which will rest in your lungs and cause a lot of modulation, changes in the lungs leading to cancer. We also have what we call tobacco-specific cancer-causing agents. They are only found in tobacco. We call them tobacco-specific nitrosamines. We have a lot of carbon monoxide that you put into your lungs when you burn that cigarette. We have formaldehyde and so many other chemicals that will end up harming your health. And that is the science that have been revolving to try and assist smokers quit. If this guy is hooked to this cigarette, how can we get him off the combustible cigarette and eventually make him not smoke?
So what do people get hooked to?
The nicotine. The nicotine is what they get hooked to.
Which is not harmful.
Which is not carcinogenic.
Okay.
Which is not carcinogenic. They get hooked up to nicotine through the cigarette. For your information, one piece of cigarette locally sold has about 10 milligrams of nicotine. When you burn it, you consume about 1 to 2 milligrams. So if you take 10 cigarettes, the eventual amount that you will get up and you will be hooked will be 10% of each cigarette value. We have some cigarettes, we have some cigars. Cigars have one of the highest nicotine levels. Cigars, cigarillos, they range up to 35 milligrams per cigar. And we know because the cigar is big, the kind of tobacco they use to make the cigar, and they are all categorized as tobacco products with all these bad components.
How do you then distinguish or categorize the elements within the cigarette, cigarillo, cigar that causes harm from the chemicals that they use in processing them?
Yeah, thank you very much. It boils down to how the tobacco is made, which has been studied for so many years. And the bottom line is, once tobacco is farmed, it is harvested. Once it is harvested, it has to be dried. Now, there are various ways of drying that tobacco. The most dangerous way of drying tobacco is either you smoke it, smoking, or you put it in a kiln. A kiln is a hot enclosure that will dry it up through heat. Then you can sun dry. Just put it on the sun, it takes time, or you air dry. Once drying is done, the tobacco is fermented. Why do we ferment tobacco? And this is done by all tobacco manufacturing companies, even at home, those who grow tobacco. The reason they ferment is to extract nicotine out of the leaf. The higher the fermentation, the higher the nicotine levels. Now, during that fermentation, that's when now you get your tobacco-specific cancer-causing agents, because the tobacco is invaded by bacteria and so many other things. Some people even add ash. If you talk to guys who farm tobacco, they'll tell you once we dry, we ferment it like the way we ferment bananas to ripen. Then they add ash. That ash also is having carcinogenic substances. So all these processes will end up bringing more and more and more dangerous products into that tobacco. And of course, once the chemical analysis is done, we'll find that that particular tobacco that has undergone that process, the moment you light it up as a cigarette, either homemade or bought, you will consume these products. So these are scientific methods that have been able to analyze all these harmful substances. And just to put into perspective, Western countries realize that. Especially Sweden was leading in that. And what did they do? They said, we will never smoke our tobacco to dry. We will never put it in a kiln to dry. We will only sun dry our tobacco. Number 2, we will never ferment our tobacco. By just doing that.
So how do they extract the nicotine if fermentation is what extracts?
It is there, but now the nicotine levels are extremely low. The nicotine, the moment you dry tobacco, it will have nicotine. But as you ferment, the percentage
increases.
Goes higher and higher. And they say, no, we'll never do that. And by so doing, they developed their first tobacco product, which had less
low nicotine.
It had low nicotine. Then it had less of those tobacco-specific nitrosamines, and that is what we call the Swedish snus. And through that, even though that type of tobacco, which is a smokeless tobacco, which you chew and put in your mouth or inhale, it is still carcinogenic because you'll end up consuming more of the product to extract as much nicotine as possible.
Okay, let's take a break. We'll talk about then what do people need to do to avoid getting hooked into smoking, and those who are smokers to successfully stop smoking. So we've been told out of every 100 people in this country who are smokers, 30 will try to quit smoking, but only 7 of them will succeed in quitting smoking. But even those 7 have a high risk of relapsing and going back into smoking. So now, dawa iko wapi? It's 9:30. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Dr. Michael Kariuki, public health and child health advocate, is our guest today. The Health Friday conversation. Schools have reopened, and Edward Catch has some good news on Spice Drive.
Back to school offers with Naivas and the Shuja offers, remembering who the Shujas are, teachers over the last few years, students, parents, and they're saying come into Naivas as schools have opened and get some great offers while stocks last. Edward will tell you more about those on the Spice Drive today from 3 to 7, so tune in for that.
Final minutes for you to win a very good 2,000 shillings worth of airtime from Airtel. Just go onto our social media handle today, and we're talking about Airtel to Airtel. Sending money via Airtel Money, Airtel to Airtel, is free. So we're asking, whom are you going to send money to this weekend? If you answer and our man Amlioto likes what you say, we are going to announce you as a winner shortly. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
3, 2.
Everybody, welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Heri Latifa, Sitmuga, Madam Du, nimesalamia wote sana.
Tumepokea salamu, asante sana.
Hapa Garissa today the weather is very good, only that baridi inatupeleka mbio sana.
Sasa baridi ni degree ngapi hapo?
Hata sijui, lakini madam tunakauka sana.
If you want to follow the money trail, you've got to think like a thief to be able to catch that thief.
A slap from a friend is better than a kiss from an enemy. You remember the kiss of Judas Iscariot?
Yes.
Is the one that imetuweka kwa hii mashida yote na mataabu kwa sababu of that kiss. Yet the slap of Jesus Christ, when he slapped those guys wenye walikuwa wanauza mboga ndani ya kanisa, took them to heaven.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
18 degrees and sunny conditions in Nairobi, highs of 25 and lows of 15. It's also 18 and sunny in Nakuru, highs of 25. We'll see highs of 24 in a rainy Nyeri at 18 and 20 and mostly cloudy in Eldoret, highs of 23. Light rain in Mombasa in some parts, highs of 29, and we'll see highs of 29 as well in Malindi. Mostly sunny conditions at 23 in Kisumu, 24 and partly sunny in Kakamega. It's partly sunny at 23 in Kampala. We'll see highs of 30 in Dar es Salaam today, and it's sunny at 24 in Johannesburg, while we'll see heavy thunderstorms in Lagos at 25. Mostly cloudy conditions at 26 in Kinshasa. Looking out into Beijing, Friday afternoon into evening, it's 19 and sunny, 20 will be the high, and it's 6 degrees and sunny in Paris. We'll see highs of 19. 19 will also be the high in a partly sunny London at 13, and it's 17 and mostly cloudy in New York Thursday night. Coming into Friday, we'll see highs of 24 and lows of 10. All right, coming out of traffic hour in no time now. A little bit of traffic still on the Thika Superhighway coming into the CBD, and we're still seeing a little bit here and there coming out of Westerns, but more or less we should be all right. Coming off of Kiambu Road, much better now, as well as it is on Limuru Road. Through the morning, talk to us on SpiceFM KE on Twitter to keep things moving through Friday.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
We continue the conversation. 25 minutes to 10, helping smokers to quit. Are alternative products the answer? Dr. Michael Kariuki, public health and child health advocate, is here with us in the studio, being hosted by me. Myself is Eric Latif. My lady is Ndu Oko, and the gentleman is C.T. Muga.
You know, the discussion around tobacco is something that has been around with us for a while. And what we call big tobacco, mostly in the West that you mentioned, over the years have actually been forced by courts to admit to something that they've for the longest time denied, manipulating cigarettes so that they are more addictive. Now, stringent measures were put in. Yes, there was compensation that people got paid. My question is, in Africa, in our part of the world, do we have such strict oversight? Because we do have tobacco manufacturers in the country, and we do have smokers.
Yes, indeed. Africa, we have smokers, and statistics are showing that the number is actually increasing as we move along. Yes, that big tobacco way back did aggressively advertise cigarettes, did aggressively make them more enticing, and after so many years, through science, it was definitely found that most of the sick people, their illnesses who are smoking were related to tobacco, and they ended up being compensated. In Africa, it's a mixed bag of reactions because we have governments, let me talk about Kenya and other African countries, that are parties to the Framework Convention for Tobacco Control, which has really tried to do a lot of regulations and be able to bring down the number of smokers in this country. Yes, the regulations are there. We have stringent measures. As I said, Empower is a strategy that is being used by countries, including raising taxes. One may sit back and ask, why are we not banning tobacco? Why can't it just be banned? And the answer is very simple. Banning has not worked. the world is fraught with risks. People are risk takers. I mean, people will do so many things. I mean, people will drive cars. That's why we have safety belts that were derived. People will continue engaging in carnal knowledge, and that's why we have condoms that were derived to try and bring down the harm, so that we don't end up with so many people dying. For the governments, they derive revenue from tobacco companies and all that. WHO has tried to advocate for the banning, but it doesn't work, even in US, even in UK. And nobody wants to talk about banning because it does not work. In South Africa, for example, during COVID, they banned tobacco for 6 months. And what did that end up with? We ended up with the tobacco prices shooting by 230%. Only 9% of smokers quit smoking. And it's postulated about half relapsed back. And despite all these measures by these countries and all that, it's high time we have a paradigm shift, educate the public more and offer smokers a solution to quit smoking. And of course, keep on agitating the government agencies, the Tobacco Control Board, NACAD, the Ministry of Health, to try and bring on board these smokers, like the UK did. UK came up with a Stop Smoking Services department that any smoker who wants to quit is referred to. In Kenya, we don't have such a department. They say the cessation services are integrated in health, which does not work.
It's not true.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work. If you walk into a hospital, I've been a doctor, I mean, you take history of a patient. Yes, I smoke how many? 2 packets a day. It ends there.
That's the end of that conversation.
It ends there. So we need a Stop Smoking Services department to assist these smokers quit. And we don't need to reinvent the wheel. I mean, UK is doing it. Canada is doing it. New Zealand is doing it. We can no longer apply the principle of quit or die for smokers. We must offer them.
You must walk the journey with them.
Absolutely.
And
why?
what are these alternatives then?
Yes, because smoking is an illness. It causes physical and psychological dependence. You are hooked to that nicotine.
That means you're an addict.
Absolutely. You're an addict. You can't tell, for example, someone who is hooked to alcohol to stop
or die.
No, you must give them, must send them to a rehab. Must tell them we need this. So for smokers, we need a very good strategy. And despite all the efforts that have been made, I mean, smoking causes diseases that can easily be prevented. Smoking is the leading cause of non-communicable diseases, which are preventable. And the question we need to ask, why are these diseases continuously going up? Why are they not, despite all the measures that have been put? The
Let me
solution,
ask you, Daktari,
yes.
Even before you just get to the solution, we have seen, the introduction of stricter laws on smoking with the Tobacco Control Act, which talks about, what the cigarette manufacturer ought to do in pasturing the warning that is bigger than everything else on the cigarette packet, controlling where people smoke. You must have those areas. Those kind of regulations, from your observation, have they had an impact in reducing the number of new people who are becoming smokers?
Yes, they have reduced, but not to the expectations that we would want. Remember, those strategies are anchored in the Empower. And out of the Empower, offering solutions or offering help to the smokers is the least implemented. And we are seeing more and more people, as per the Tobacco Atlas, in lower middle income countries, smoking going up. In this country, we have almost 1 million youth who are smoking cigarettes. The smoking decline that we would anticipate is not happening.
Okay.
The smoking decline that we would anticipate is not happening.
But remember, in the West, part of the problem with smoking and smokers was the advertisement, the lure.
Yep.
And the advertisement, whether if you're talking about what we call social vices like smoking or drinking, the target is usually younger people. So it made you cooler. It made you whatever it is that you think would be appropriate in today's terminology. Now, if you look at a packet of cigarettes, like now the advertisement, the packet tells you that it is dangerous to your health. Some say it kills.
Yes.
But the problem is, how do you get people who want to start smoking to actually not even start? Because there's this question of peer pressure, what people do, and what it is that they think makes them fit in. The social issues surrounding, as I said, all these vices. Because stopping it or putting laws that prohibited, the Americans tried in the 1933 to stop people from actually drinking, buying, production, selling of alcohol. How did that work? Same thing. Prices just shot up. People started illicitly producing it. Are we saying then that with all these standards and regulations, do we have a position where we are at a point where cigarette production can actually be put in place, but with the proviso that all these harmful additives that are found in it are reduced significantly? Are we saying that is where we are headed? Because it can't be one thing. It must be that, and it must be other things, so that because there will be people who want to smoke. You can't ban tobacco production, or you can't ban cigarettes. So, is making them less harmful a path, even as you think of other ways of reducing, not smoking, but the harm that it causes?
Yes, absolutely, and harm reduction is the way to go. The UK, for example, has set 2030 to be smoke-free. So they actually have a target. They are saying, yes, we want by 2030, all the citizens in this country who smoke combustible cigarette should have quit. How are they doing it? By harm reduction strategies, assisting smokers, continuing with public health education, enhancing regulation, enhancing the smoking rules. You can't smoke in public. You should not smoke indoors. Of course, the issue of taxes is also there. But now they have shifted. They have a paradigm shift, and they have actually set a target by 2030. They are already seeing the target may not work by 2030, so they probably think that by 2037, we don't have such targets in this country. We don't have targets to say we want Kenya to be smoke-free by this year. And that is why we are calling upon this Stop Smoking Services Department. The key thing is you must walk the journey with smokers. Then as you walk the journey with smokers, they will tell their story. And that is what has been found to be the biggest deterrent into recruiting new smokers. But the moment you leave them to their own devices, new smokers will be recruited. So all the strategies are working for the Empower, but offering solution, and that is what the UK is focusing on. That research you quoted from the Institute of Psychiatry, Psychology and Neuroscience was an independent research. They wanted to evaluate what are the effects of these products. And one of the things they said is that, including other scientists, Dr. Khan has been leading science in the UK, and their conclusion was we must assist our smokers to quit if we want to be smoke-free by 2030. We must work with them as we move
walk the journey.
And the same strategy actually applies even with the HIV/AIDS. You must walk with the infected the journey so that you reduce the number of infections from spreading, even as you target those who are not infected.
So is the goal twofold then? Because we're still, essentially we're dealing with an issue of addiction. There's the addiction to the nicotine, isn't it?
Yes.
And so even with the other interventions that have been arrived at over the years, a nicotine patch, what we're seeing with vaping, etc., there is still the dependence on the nicotine. There's still the addiction. But is what we are saying then, quit this act of burning the cigarette so that we stop the threat of these diseases, cancer and such? Or is it a fourfold thing? Deal with the addiction as well as stop the smoking?
Yes, it's a twofold thing because harm reduction strategies work this way. We get the smoker, we assist the smoker to quit. Our goal is to even get them off the alternatives. How? By introducing these products that are being used in UK, like the vapes, which are center stage in assisting smokers to quit. And we have seen even the Department of Health, the Stop Smoking Services Department, they are advocating that these smokers need this prescription from specialists. And just like this Chinese pharmacist did, he tapered down the dose. So you assess what is the level of addiction. So this person, we can start with nicotine doses of 20 for this number of days. Then we drop to 10, we drop to 5, and we eventually wean them off smoking. So it is double-edged. The whole aim is not to have this smoker use the alternative in perpetuity.
Yeah. So it should not also be available over the counter.
Those are now the strategies. For example,
because
Japan,
if it's available over the counter, then
yes. For example, Japan, you can only buy a nicotine product through prescription. In this country, if you walk outside here, you'll find all sorts and manner of products, accessible to children, accessible to the young. Why? Because we don't want to regulate these products, and we are calling we need a regulation. If you walk into any social place, you can attest you will find so many types of vaping products. Right now, as we speak, more and more youth are being recruited into vaping. Why? Because we don't have a policy direction on these products. We are not educating our public enough to tell them, if you are not a smoker, don't start vaping. Vaping is only meant for those people who want to quit smoking.
Can you get addicted through vaping?
Absolutely, yes. We were surprised the other day we did some research. Some of these products have nicotine levels that are lethal. The WHO recommended nicotine dose that is lethal is between 30 to 50 milligrams. Some of these vaping products have 100 milligrams.
What?
Extremely lethal. And they are being sold out there. There is zero regulation. And we need now to say we need to regulate these vaping products. Young people in this country, young ladies, young men are picking up vaping to look cool. And some of those products are not cheap. They can range from anywhere from 3,000 to 50,000. So the more expensive the product you have, the cooler you look. And now we are telling Kenyans that should not happen. We are calling upon the Tobacco Control Board, Ministry of Health, and NACADA. We need a structure. Those products, those alternative products are meant for smokers to assist them to quit.
You know, 90%, according to research, 90% of smokers worldwide begin smoking before the age of 18. The why people are attracted, the what is used to attract people to smoking in their youth when they're actually far more vulnerable and their decision-making processes have not matured. What is done to reduce this? Because they are snared at that particular point in time. And then when we see them as adults, the harm was done a long time ago. What we are then dealing with are the consequences of decisions that were made much, much earlier.
Yes, in pediatrics, we say the brain fully develops at 25. Even in our setup, we still see anyone who is less than 25 as being a pediatric age group. And that is the truth. Most of these smokers begin before the age of 25, when their brain is developing, new connections, what we call synapses, and when they start smoking, or they live in an environment where the father is smoking, or they live in an environment where their friends are smoking, that smoke, the moment is inhaled, the nicotine binds to specific brain receptors called nicotine receptors. And now these people start craving for these products. They start craving for these products over and over until now they fully get hooked up, and getting them out of smoking becomes a big, big problem. And that's why we are saying we need a target to have a smoke-free country. By which year? We need to, and how do we walk that path? We need a very clear strategy. Otherwise, more and more young people will get hooked up. The moment these alternative products are not reachable to the smokers, they will continue smoking.
As a doctor, and well, doctors belong to associations which are tied with their specialities. Now, if we know that young people are ensnared at an early age, has there been an attempt, have there been moves to ensure that the education sector, which is where you can capture the young in large groups of people, have these thoughts been passed on so that as part of the education of young people, these things are spoken of, because they have to be spoken of?
Yes, for example, Kenya Pediatric Association, Kenya Medical Association, there have been concerted efforts to continuously educate parents. The Kenya Medical Association provides a member into the Tobacco Control Board. The Tobacco Control Board's mandate is to ensure that the message is also passed into schools.
How do they ensure this?
Is to ensure that the message is passed into schools so that we have curriculum integrated to tell these young children smoking is harmful.
But is it there?
We haven't seen, personally I haven't seen any. But the message is continuously passed. So that's why we need a collaborative effort to make sure that we target all sectors of
Do you think big tobacco is working hard at ensuring some of these things don't work?
Well, that's a tough one to make.
It's not in their interest to have less smokers.
It's a tough one to make, but we are not representing in the industry here. Borrowing a leaf from the UK, they are working towards a smoke-free nation by 2030. It must
in
be
just 8-7 years.
It must be a government policy, irrespective of what the industry says. So it must be a government policy, then the government must stand firm and say, we must work towards a tobacco-free nation by this time, and this is how we'll get to it. So we are calling upon the government and all stakeholders to come on board and relook into this issue further and say, how do we assist our smokers quit? Can we have a stop smoking services department? Can we set those targets and continuously educate our public? And eventually we'll get there. Of course, if there are no smoking targets, it means that the industry will be hurt in one way or another.
And the
but
government
it must
will
be a
lose.
government policy.
How much revenue does the government make from just the cigarette industry? In terms of direct and indirect taxes, and including income tax?
Yes.
Is it the third or so largest taxpayer in this country?
Absolutely, it is. It is. And that tells you a lot that we must have initiatives arising from the government, having known that, yes, this is the third largest taxpayer, but we need to protect our public. We need to target the smokers. We need to stop our people from smoking. And all those studies that have been done in England, Public Health England, the Institute of Psychiatry, the center stage message is, one, these alternative products, such as vapes, are not risk-free. Two, These alternative products, such as vape, are 95% safer than combustible cigarettes. 3, these products must be regulated so that the youth and children are not enticed. For example, in the US, 2 million youth are using these products, and the FDA, Center for Tobacco Products, is really working hard to make sure that they are protecting their youth, because they have realized that more and more youth are picking these products. They are picking the products and consuming because it's fun and it's cool to do that.
A lot of work needs to be done. Daktari, thank you very much for coming. And of course, we have to maintain this conversation and sustain it, especially for awareness creation across the country. Dr. Michael Kariuki is a public health and child health advocate. He's basically saying, you want to quit smoking, the government ought to support you in that. But also, these alternative smoking things that you guys are having, they are safer, but they are not the best. And we ought to also avoid them. If you're not a smoker, don't start with vaping. Avoid it. Let's reward somebody for 2,000 shillings worth of airtime. Who's that? Who's getting it, Ndu?
Okay, so Dr. Doc is saying he's sending it to his wife to pay the hospital bill for her mum.
Whom are you sending Airtel money to this weekend? Congratulations, Dr. Doc. We'll get in touch with you on how you win the money. Have a lovely weekend. We'll be back on Monday, God willing. Have a lovely weekend. It's 10 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto, Director of Public